She was bleeding when she hit the gate, barefoot, half-dressed, a storm tearing the sky open above her, and two sets of headlights crawling down the road like wolves that had already tasted her. The man behind those gates was the most dangerous name in the city, and he was the last door left on earth she could knock on. One push of a button, one decision. That was all it took to turn a dying woman into a weapon, and a feared man into something worse. If you've ever wondered how far a person can be pushed before they stop being afraid, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled tonight. The rain didn't fall that night. It attacked. It came down in sheets so thick the streetlights along Ridgemont Hill looked drowned, their yellow halos smeared into the black like something half erased. Wind tore through the oaks lining the private road, ripping leaves off in whole handfuls, slapping them wet against the stone walls of estates that cost more than most people would earn in 3 lifetimes. Thunder rolled somewhere behind the clouds, low, patient, the kind that doesn't announce itself so much as remind you it's already there. And through all of it, a woman was running. Lena Cross didn't look like a woman anymore. She looked like something that had crawled out of a wreck. Her feet were bare, split open on gravel 2 miles back, leaving a thin trail of pink wherever the rain hadn't yet washed it away. The dress she wore, pale blue silk, the kind worn to the kind of parties where men like Marcus Hale made speeches, was torn at the shoulder, soaked through, clinging to her ribs like wet paper. Her hair, dark and heavy, stuck to her neck. There was blood on her mouth. Not a lot. Enough. A seam at the corner of her lip that kept reopening every time she gasped for air. She didn't know where she was going. That was the truth of it. She only knew where she couldn't go back to. Behind her, 2 sets of headlights swept the curve of the road. They didn't race. That was the thing that broke something inside her the first time she realized it. Somewhere between the gas station she'd slipped past and the cul-de-sac where she'd jumped a chain-link fence and torn her knee on the other side. They weren't chasing her like panicked men chase a thief. They were hunting her, methodical, patient. A slow crawl, maybe 15 miles an hour, sweeping left to right, letting the high beams lick the hedges, the side paths, the drainage ditches where a girl might try to hide. They knew she couldn't outrun them. They had all night. A branch cracked somewhere to her left and she lurched sideways on instinct, scraping her shoulder raw against a wall of riverstone. A sob tried to climb out of her throat, and she bit it back so hard she tasted iron. Don't cry. Don't cry. Crying makes noise. Noise gets you killed. That was a rule she'd learned 2 years ago in a house full of white carpet and cameras, and it had never stopped being true. She pushed off the wall and kept moving. The estates here weren't houses. They were fortresses. 12-foot walls. Gates with cameras that blinked red in the dark. Intercoms mounted on iron posts that nobody answered after midnight, and especially not for a strange woman screaming in the rain. She knew because she'd tried 3 already. The first gate had an intercom that clicked once and went dead. The second house had a security guard shape in a booth who pretended to be asleep when she pressed her face against the glass. The third had dogs. She'd heard them before she'd seen them, and she'd run so hard her lungs tasted like pennies. Somewhere between the second and third gate she had stopped thinking in full sentences. Her head was only giving her pieces now. Flashes. Marcus's hand on the banister, the champagne glass on the kitchen island, the way he'd said her name, Lena, like he was correcting a child. She shook her head hard like she could fling the memory off, and water sprayed out of her hair. The headlights behind her swelled. They turned onto the private road. She could hear the tires now, that soft hiss they make on wet asphalt. Close, maybe 60 yards back, nothing between her and them but a curve of hedge and the grace of bad visibility. She was going to die on this road. She understood that with a clarity that felt almost peaceful. Then, up ahead, through a gap in the trees, she saw it. A gate she hadn't seen before. Taller than the others. Black iron, ornate in a way that felt old rather than fancy. The kind of ironwork that belonged in a different century. 2 stone pillars on either side, each one crowned with some kind of carved animal she couldn't make out in the dark. No name on the mailbox. No numbers. Just a single brass plate mounted beside an intercom and one word etched into it in a small, unapologetic font. VOS. Her knees buckled before her brain caught up. Every adult in the city knew that name. You didn't live in Arcanum Bay for more than 6 months without learning it, the way you learn which intersections flood and which restaurants launder money. Adrian Voss, the shipping magnate who wasn't really a shipping magnate, the philanthropist who never showed up to his own galas, the man the newspapers called enigmatic because their lawyers wouldn't let them call him anything more honest. Half the city said he owned the port. The other half said the port was the smallest thing he owned. Marcus had mentioned him twice. Both times his voice had gone strange, not afraid, not quite, but careful. That kind of careful, Lena remembered now, watching the rain hammer the iron, the kind Marcus only used when he was talking about things that could actually hurt him. The headlights behind her found the curve. She didn't think. There was no thinking left in her. She lunged forward and slammed both palms against the intercom panel so hard the brass plate rattled in its housing. She jammed the button with her thumb. Nothing. She jammed it again, again, again. Each press a small dying animal noise under her breath. Please, please, please. Not a prayer exactly, because she'd stopped believing anyone was listening a long time ago. Just a sound a body makes when it doesn't want to stop existing. The intercom crackled. No voice. Just static. A live line. She pressed her forehead against the wet iron and forced words out of a throat that felt full of gravel. Please, her voice cracked open on the word. Please, there are men coming. They're going to... Please, I know you don't know me. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but please... The static crackled again. Then, finally, a voice. Low. Male. Slowed by the kind of calm that comes from being woken up and choosing not to be annoyed about it. Who is this? It wasn't a question. It was a door being opened 1 inch. She was sobbing now. She could feel it, her shoulders shaking so hard the iron rattled under her hands. Lena, she said. My name is Lena Cross, and if you don't open this gate, I'm going to die on the other side of it. I swear, please. Silence. The headlights behind her rounded the last curve. The hedge was the only thing hiding her, maybe 40 yards. Please, she whispered, and this time she didn't even recognize her own voice. Please, Mr. Voss. A pause she would remember for the rest of her life. Then the lock on the gate clicked open with a sound like a pistol being cocked in reverse, and the iron began to swing inward, slow and heavy, and a man's voice came through the speaker one more time. Walk. Don't run. Don't look back. Cameras are watching you. Go to the front door. She didn't obey the don't run part. Her body was already moving. The driveway was longer than it had any right to be. Crushed white stone, lined with black cypress, curving up a slope toward a house that rose out of the storm like something a child would draw if they were drawing the kind of place monsters lived in on purpose. 3 stories. Stone. Wide windows lit from within by a cold, pale light. She couldn't see anyone inside. She couldn't see anyone anywhere. The whole estate felt like it was holding its breath. Behind her, the gate swung shut. She heard the lock engage. She heard a half-second later the sound of a car braking hard on the other side. A horn. 2 sharp blasts. Then a voice, muffled through iron and distance. But she knew it. She'd know it with her ears cut off. Lena! Marcus. Not his real voice. The other one. The one he used when the cameras were off. She kept running. Her foot came down on a sharp stone halfway up the drive, and she pitched forward, caught herself on her hands, didn't even feel it when her palm opened on the gravel. She got back up. The rain was in her mouth now. She was crying, and she didn't know when she'd started. The front doors opened as she reached them. Not a servant, not a guard. A man. He was already standing in the doorway, backlit, and for one irrational second she thought she'd made a mistake, that this was another trap. Another Marcus waiting behind another door. He was tall, broad through the shoulders in a way that made the dark suit he was wearing look like a thing he'd chosen rather than a thing he'd been dressed in. Dark hair, cut short. A face that wasn't handsome the way Marcus was handsome. Marcus's face was a magazine cover. This man's face was a closed fist, all angles, shadowed, a jaw that looked like it hadn't smiled in a long time and didn't plan to start. She stopped 3 feet from him and couldn't remember how words worked. Adrian Voss looked at her. He didn't step forward. He didn't recoil. His eyes, she'd expect to say they were cold, and they were. But it wasn't a cruel cold. It was the cold of a man running numbers, top of her head to her split feet, the blood at her mouth, the way she was holding her left arm against her ribs without seeming to know she was doing it, the dress, the bare feet, the two headlights beyond his gate that hadn't yet moved on. He took all of her in about 2 seconds. Then he said, quiet, "Come inside." She couldn't move. Something had gone wrong in her legs. She'd run 3 miles. Her body had decided it was done. She opened her mouth to say, "I can't," and what came out was a dry, broken sound, and then she was going down. He caught her before her knee hit the stone. He didn't make a big thing of it. One arm under her shoulders, the other behind her knees, the way you'd lift a child out of a cold pool. She felt the cloth of his sleeve against her cheek, and it was warm and dry, and she smelled something on it. Not cologne, nothing sweet, just clean laundry and something like wood smoke. And for the first time in 2 years, a part of her unclenched. That scared her more than Marcus. "I'm going to put you down on a couch," Adrian said, already carrying her over the threshold. His voice against her ear was even. "I'm going to have someone look at you. Nobody is going to touch you without asking. Do you understand?" She tried to nod. "Say it." "I understand," she whispered. The doors swung shut behind them. She heard the locks engage. Not one, several, heavy steel bolts sliding into place in sequence, the kind of sound she'd only ever heard in movies. And through the wood and stone, faint, she heard another sound, the one that had been chasing her for 3 miles. Marcus, still out there, screaming her name. The room he carried her into was a study. She registered it in pieces. Dark wood, floor-to-ceiling shelves lined with books that looked like they'd actually been read. A fire already burning in the hearth. Had it already been burning when she arrived? Who kept a fire at 2 a.m.? A low couch, deep green leather, worn at the arms. He set her down on it gently and stepped back immediately, giving her a full arm's length of space without being asked. A woman appeared in the doorway, 50-something. Gray-streaked hair pulled back tight, a robe over what looked like scrubs. She was already carrying a medical kit. "Mara," Adrian said. "She's bleeding. Feet, mouth, possibly ribs. She's in shock." He didn't look at Lena as he said it. It wasn't rude. It was efficient. He was giving information to someone who needed it. "Got it." Mara crossed the room without hurrying. She crouched a few feet from the couch, kit open on the rug. She didn't reach out. "Honey," she said, and her voice was warm in a way Adrian's wasn't. "Can I look at your feet?" Lena nodded. Mara went to work. Lena watched her own feet being cleaned like they belonged to somebody else. The water in the little basin turned pink, then red, then darker. A piece of glass came out of her heel that she hadn't even known was there. She didn't flinch. Her nervous system had clocked out somewhere on the driveway. Across the room, Adrian Voss was at a desk, facing a bank of monitors she hadn't noticed before. Security feeds, a dozen of them. One showed the front gate. 2 black SUVs sat nose to nose in front of it, engines running, headlights on. A man in a dark coat was standing at the intercom, her intercom, the one she'd just sobbed into, jabbing the button. Even through the grainy feed, she could see that he was handsome in that magazine way. Dark blonde hair. A face carved for a courtroom. A mouth she had kissed more times than she wanted to remember. "Marcus." Adrian tapped a key. A speaker on the desk came alive. Marcus's voice flooded the study. "No, she came this way, I'm telling you. She came through here. I need you to open this gate. There's been a misunderstanding. She's not well. She's my fiancée. She has episodes. Hello? Hello? I know someone is on this line." The calm with which Marcus lied was one of the things that had broken her over the years. He could lie the way most people breathed, without effort, without tells. You could hand him a lie, and he'd walk it past a lie detector. Adrian watched the screen without expression. Lena made a sound. She didn't mean to. It was small, but it was the sound of a person who had just realized fully that she had run into a house with a stranger while the man who owned her was standing on the other side of a fence 200 yards away. Adrian looked up at her. "He's not coming in," he said. "You don't know him," she said. Her voice was wrecked. "He'll find a way. He always finds a way." He's not coming in, Adrian said again. The same flat certainty. Then, a little softer. Not tonight. Not ever, if I decide he isn't. He pressed a button. On the monitor, a second gate camera zoomed in on Marcus's face. Adrian's eyes ran over it the way, an hour ago, they had run over Lena, cataloging, measuring, weighing. Then he picked up a phone. He dialed 3 numbers. Not 911, she noticed. 3. And spoke quietly into it. It's Voss. I have a situation at the gate. 2 vehicles, 4 men, trespass, attempted forcible entry. The driver is making threats through my intercom. I want them moved. Quietly, if you can. Loudly, if you can't. A pause. No, don't detain him. He has lawyers I don't want to spend a week on. Just encourage him to go home. Another pause. I know what time it is, Hal. Do it anyway. He hung up. Mara, still working on Lena's feet, didn't look up. You want the arm next, honey? She asked, like she was offering tea. Lena slowly loosened her grip on her own left arm. It had gone numb. When she let go, she saw the bruise for the first time. A ring of dark finger-shaped marks above her elbow, already purpling, already old-looking in the way new bruises sometimes are on thin skin. Adrian's eyes found the bruise. Something moved in his face. Not an expression exactly, more like a muscle choosing not to move, and the restraint being the whole story. He turned back to the monitors. On the screen, headlights finally swept away from the gate. Marcus was getting back into his SUV. He slammed the door. He was saying something to the man in the driver's seat, something furious, the kind of thing that doesn't come out in a complete sentence. And then the car pulled away in a hard, angry arc. The second SUV followed. Lena watched the red taillight shrink and disappear around the curve she'd come up. And something in her chest that had been held rigid for 2 years, a thing so tight she'd forgotten it was a thing at all, began in the tiniest increment to loosen. She started to shake. Not a shiver. Not crying. A whole body tremor, teeth knocking together, hands spasming in her lap. Mara recognized it instantly. She set down the gauze and picked up a folded wool blanket from the back of the couch and wrapped Lena in it without ceremony, tucking it tight under her chin. Shock, Mara said quietly. She needs sugar and water, not in that order. Adrian was already moving. He crossed to a sideboard Lena hadn't noticed, poured something clear from a glass bottle into a crystal tumbler, and then, to her surprise, poured it back out into the sink. He opened a small cabinet below, came back with a glass of water and a small bowl of honey. He handed them to Mara without looking at Lena. Mara put a spoon of honey against Lena's lips. Open. Lena opened. The honey hit her tongue and her body remembered for the first time in hours that it was alive. She started to cry. Not the sharp, bitten-back sobs from the road. Something slower. Something that came up from a place she hadn't known was still capable of making sound. She cried for a long time, and nobody tried to stop her. Mara kept one hand on her shoulder, steady. Adrian moved to the far window and stood with his back to the room, giving her what privacy a stranger could give. When she was done, she was too tired to be embarrassed. Adrian turned around. You can stay here tonight, he said. There's a guest room upstairs. It has a lock on the inside, not the outside. Mara's room is across the hall. The house has cameras in the corridors, but not in the rooms. You won't see me again until the morning unless you ask for me. Is that clear? She nodded. I need to hear you say it. Clear, she whispered. Good. He hesitated, the first hesitation she'd seen in him. In the morning, I'm going to ask you some questions. Not all of them, just enough. You don't have to answer anything you don't want to, but I'd like to know who was at my gate and why, and what you'd like me to do about it. Lena pulled the blanket tighter around herself. You already know who it was, she said. Her voice was flat. You watched his face on the screen. Adrian didn't deny it. I know his name, he said. I know what he looks like on television. That's not the same as knowing who he is. A pause. I don't think you ran 3 miles in a storm to escape a man I know from television. She looked up at him for the first time since he'd set her down on the couch. His eyes, up close, in firelight, were not the color she'd thought. Not cold. Gray maybe, but not cold. More like stone. Old, settled, the kind you could build a wall out of. There was nothing kind in his face, but there was nothing hungry in it either. And after 2 years with Marcus Hale, Lena Cross had learned to tell the difference between a man who wasn't kind and a man who was hungry, and the second was the only one that mattered. "No," she said quietly. "You don't know him." Adrian nodded once, like she'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. "Tomorrow, then." He glanced at Mara. "Take her up. Anything she wants, she gets. If she wants the door locked, it's locked. If she wants it open, it's open. If she wants to leave in the morning, I'll have a car ready." "And if she wants to stay?" Mara asked. Adrian looked back at Lena. "Then we'll talk." Og. The guest room was on the second floor, at the end of a hallway that smelled faintly of old wood and something green. Rosemary, maybe. Mara walked Lena up the stairs one at a time, an arm hooked gently under hers. Lena couldn't feel her feet. The bandages Mara had put on them were thick and white, and she watched them move under her and thought, distantly, "Those are my feet. Those are attached to me. I am a person with feet." The room, when Mara opened the door, was a kind of room Lena had forgotten existed. It wasn't fancy. That was the thing. Marcus's house had been fancy. Marble countertops, a closet bigger than her first apartment, art on the walls he couldn't name the artists of. This room was just a room. A real bed with a heavy white duvet. A fireplace with logs already stacked, unlit. A window seat with a view of a dark garden and rain beating against glass. A small bathroom through a doorway, tile, a clawfoot tub, a wooden dresser, a lamp with a warm bulb. No mirrors on the wall facing the bed. That detail made her throat close up, and she didn't know why until she remembered the wall of mirrors in her bedroom at Marcus's. Their bedroom, he'd always corrected her, and the way she had learned, over 2 years, not to look at herself in them. Mara saw her take in the room. "Mr. Voss had us prepared an hour ago," Mara said, matter of fact. "When you were still on the road." Lena turned to her. "How did he know I was coming?" Mara paused at the door. For the first time, something like amusement touched the corner of her mouth. "He didn't," she said. "He prepares rooms. He has 4 of them in this house. I've worked here 6 years. I've seen them used twice." She stepped out. Then she stepped back in. "Honey," she said, "the lock is on your side of the door. Nobody has a key. Not me. Not him. If you need me, knock on the wall, but my room shares this one. I sleep light, okay?" Lena nodded. "Get in the tub," Mara added. "Warm, not hot. 10 minutes. Then get in the bed. I'll leave clothes on the chair. You're not going to sleep well tonight, that's okay. Sleep happens the second night, sometimes the third." A small, tired smile. "I've done this before." "Done what?" Mara didn't answer that. She just touched the door frame lightly with her knuckles and stepped out, and the door clicked shut behind her. Lena stood in the middle of the room. After a long moment, she crossed to the door and turned the lock herself. Then she stood there with her hand on the brass knob, listening to her own breathing, until it stopped shaking so badly. She was alive. She was alive, and she was warm. And there was a door between her and the world, and the door was locked from her side only, and somewhere downstairs a man she had heard of for the first time 8 months ago in a whispered conversation at a dinner party was, at this exact moment, probably still standing at a window, watching the road and making sure the 2 SUVs didn't come back. She walked, carefully, on her bandaged feet, to the bathtub, and she turned on the water, and she sat down on the edge of the tub in a torn silk dress and watched the steam rise. And for the first time in a very long time, she let herself think about what came next, instead of what came a minute from now. She didn't know yet that this wasn't over. She didn't know yet that Marcus Hale, driving away from a gate he couldn't open, was already making phone calls of his own, and that the men he was calling were not the kind of men you hired. They were the kind of men you belonged to. She didn't know yet that the house she had run into was owned by a man who had made his fortune on the exact same underground rivers Marcus used to make his reputation flow, and that there were reasons Adrian Voss had opened that gate, reasons she would come to understand slowly over the next 3 weeks, that had nothing to do with pity and everything to do with a name Marcus had never known Adrian knew. She didn't know any of that yet. All she knew that first night was that the door was locked from her side, and a woman with gray-streaked hair had said honey like she meant it, and a man with a closed-fist face had caught her when her knee gave out and hadn't held on 1 second longer than he needed to. She peeled off the wet silk. She got in the water. And somewhere downstairs, in a dark study lit only by the glow of a dozen security feeds, Adrian Voss stood at the window with a glass in his hand that he hadn't yet drunk from and watched the road where the taillights had been, and thought about a phone call he was going to have to make in the morning, to a man he hadn't spoken to in 4 years, about a name he had hoped never to hear again in his lifetime. Marcus Hale. He set the glass down without drinking. The storm hadn't stopped. If anything, it was picking up. Rain hammered the tall windows in the study, and somewhere at the edge of the property a tree cracked and came down with a sound like a rifle shot, and Adrian barely registered it. He was still looking at the last frame on the monitor, frozen from the gate camera. Marcus's face, lit in profile by his own headlights, turning to get back into the SUV. A man who was used to winning. A man who thought he was still winning, even right then, even with his fiancée locked inside another man's house, because men like Marcus Hale couldn't imagine a world in which they weren't eventually going to win. Adrian had spent most of his adult life cultivating the appearance of being unknowable. He had never, not once, been unknowable to himself. He knew exactly what he was about to do. He knew exactly what it was going to cost him. He knew the names of the 3 men he was going to have to call, and the favors he was going to have to burn, and the enemies he was going to have to make, and the reason he was going to do all of it anyway. He had opened the gate. He could have not opened the gate. He had every reason in the world not to open the gate. A strange woman at 2 a.m. in a storm with 2 SUVs on her back. That was the definition of a situation a man in his position walked away from. He had taken exactly 1 second to decide. Less. He hadn't really decided at all. His hand had moved to the button before his brain had caught up, and now he was going to live with it, and so was she, and so, he suspected, was Marcus Hale, though Marcus didn't know it yet. Adrian turned off the sonator. The room went dark except for the fire. In the dark, he said one thing, quiet, to nobody. Okay. Just that. Okay. The sound of a man agreeing to a fight he hadn't started but had no intention of losing. Upstairs, through 2 floors of stone and wood, he couldn't hear the water running in the guest bathroom. He couldn't hear Lena Cross lower herself slowly into the warm tub, or the small involuntary sound she made when the heat touched the cuts on her feet, or the way she finally, after what had been, by any honest accounting, the longest night of her life, leaned her head back against the porcelain rim and closed her eyes and let herself be still. But he knew she was up there. And she knew, for the first time in 2 years, that there was a wall between her and the thing that had been eating her alive. A wall made of stone and iron and a stranger's split-second choice. And whatever else came next, at least for tonight, the wall was going to hold. Outside, the rain kept coming. The road was empty. But somewhere, in a car heading down the hill toward the city, Marcus Hale was already on his phone. And the voice on the other end of the line was saying, very calmly, "Let me understand this. You lost her at Voss's gate?" And Marcus, for the first time in a long time, was about to learn what it felt like to be the one who was afraid. She slept in pieces, not whole sleep, not the kind that fixes anything. It came at her in short, uneven drops, 10 minutes here, 40 there, jolted awake each time by the sound of a door. She wasn't sure she'd actually heard, or a pair of headlights sweeping across a wall that didn't have a window. Twice she sat bolt upright in the bed with her hand already reaching for a lamp to swing, and both times she'd had to remind herself, out loud, in a voice that didn't sound like hers, where she was. Voss. The gate. The study. Mara. She said the names like a rosary. Voss. The gate. The study. Mara. By the 3rd time she said them, she believed them a little more. The rain had quit sometime before dawn. She didn't know when. She only knew she opened her eyes once, and the window was still black, and opened them again, and the glass was gray, and opened them a 3rd time, and the garden outside was a mess of broken branches and standing water, and a thin washed-out sun was trying to climb over a wall at the back of the property, and somewhere in the house, very far away, a woman was humming. She lay there for a long time without moving. The bandages on her feet had bled through in a few places and dried into the cloth. Her ribs hurt in a way that told her she should probably eat something before she tried to find out how badly. Her lower lip had scabbed overnight, and when she touched it with her tongue, the skin split again, the smallest pop, and she tasted copper. Her left shoulder, where the silk had torn, had a long graze along it she didn't remember getting. She'd been running. You don't remember the wall you scrape in the dark. You remember the headlights. You remember the footsteps. The wall, is just the wall. She sat up slowly. On the chair by the dresser, folded in a neat square, someone had left clothes. A pair of soft gray sweatpants, a long-sleeved white shirt that looked like it had been washed 100 times, thick wool socks, a hooded sweatshirt, oversized, dark green, the sleeves folded back. Next to them, a pair of new slip-on shoes still with the tag on. Her size. Beside those, on the seat of the chair, a small glass of water and a banana and 2 pieces of dry toast on a plate. She stared at the toast. It was such a small thing. 2 pieces of dry toast. No butter, no jam, no olive wood tray from the Amalfi Coast with a monogram napkin, no bone china, no bud vase with a single white rose. Just toast, the kind a nurse leaves for a patient who's been throwing up all night. The care was in the lack of performance. Mara had left her something her stomach could handle without asking, and left it without waking her, and gone back down the stairs. Lena ate 1 piece standing up at the dresser. It went down hard. She drank half the water. Then she got dressed, slowly, like a person who had learned in the last several hours that her body was a borrowed thing, and she was going to have to be polite to it for a while. When she finally opened the door of the guest room, she half expected someone to be standing in the hall. No one was. She stood there for a second, one hand still on the brass knob, listening. The house was big in the way old houses are big. It held sound. She could hear water somewhere. A kettle, maybe. A low voice, too far off to parse. A dog barked once, outside, and went quiet. She walked. Her bandaged feet moved soundlessly on the runner that ran the length of the second-floor hall. She passed 3 more doors, all shut. A tall window at the end of the hall gave her a long gray view of a gravel drive curving down toward the gate she'd thrown herself at 6 hours ago. The gate looked unremarkable in the morning. Just iron. Just a thing. At the top of the stairs, she stopped. Her legs didn't want to go down them. Nothing dramatic. They just didn't. She put her hand on the banister and waited for them to decide, and as she waited, she heard the voice from below more clearly. A man's voice. Low, even, on a phone. Adrian's voice. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't threatening anyone. He was just talking in that same flat measuring way he'd talked last night. "I don't need you to like it, Hal. I need you to do it. Pull the traffic cams on the hill between 2 and 3 a.m. If anything in a 4-block radius caught those 2 plates, I want it. No, don't flag the request. Don't even log it. Pull it the way you pull things when your wife asks. Yes, that way." A pause. "I know what I said 4 years ago. I'm saying something different now." She heard him set the phone down. She went down the stairs. He was standing in the study doorway when she came around the corner, and he didn't look surprised to see her. She had the feeling he'd heard her come down, or more likely seen her come down on a screen somewhere. He'd changed clothes. No suit this morning. A dark sweater pushed up at the forearms. Gray trousers. No tie. He looked less like a man who'd been hosting a wartime evacuation and more like a man who had, at some point, a kitchen. "You came down on your own," he said. She stopped 2 steps above the foyer floor. "Was that a test?" "No, just noticing." "Noticing what?" He tilted his head very slightly. "That you came down on your own." She held the banister a little tighter. "Mara's in the kitchen," he said. "She's made enough breakfast to feed a small country because she doesn't know what you like. I told her to make everything. Come eat whatever stays down. We'll talk after." "We're talking now." His mouth did something that almost passed for a smile and then didn't. "We are," he agreed. He stepped aside to let her pass. She went past him. She was careful not to brush his sleeve. He didn't correct for it, and he didn't pretend not to notice. It was an exchange that lasted less than a second, and it was the first test he passed without knowing it was a test. The kitchen was at the back of the house. Stone floor. A long oak table scarred by what looked like generations of use. A wood-burning range at one end of the room and a modern stove at the other, like the kitchen couldn't decide which century it lived in. Mara was at the modern stove, in the same gray-streaked bun from the night before, cracking eggs into a pan with one hand. "Sit," Mara said without turning. "Drink the orange juice first. I don't care how you feel about orange juice." Lena sat. The orange juice was in a short, heavy glass. She drank it. Her body clung to the sugar like a rope. She set the glass down and realized her hand was shaking again, but this time it was just her hand, not her whole body. And that felt like progress. Adrian came in behind her. He didn't sit at the table. He went to a coffee pot on the counter, poured 2 mugs, one black, one with a splash of milk, and put the milky one down in front of her without asking. She took it. The surface of the coffee shook when she lifted it, and she set it back down and folded her hands in her lap. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For all of it. I don't know what I ran up to your gate and I screamed at you, and I'm a stranger, and you don't... I'm sorry. I don't know how to be in your house. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. You don't owe me an apology. I owe you something." He looked at her across the table. His coffee was untouched in his hand. "You don't," he said. "But if you want to give me something, you can give me the truth. That's worth more to me than gratitude." Mara set a plate in front of her. Eggs, a piece of bread with butter, a few slices of tomato. Nothing more, nothing less. Lena looked at it and didn't touch it for a full minute, just to make sure she could. Then she picked up the fork. "What do you want to know?" she asked. Adrian sat down across from her. He didn't drink his coffee either. He was, she noticed, a man who seemed to pick up a glass as a kind of punctuation and then forget about it. "Whatever you feel like telling me," he said. "I'm not going to ask you specifics about him. Not yet. I want to hear what you want me to hear, what you choose to hand me. We can work forward from that." She chewed a piece of egg slowly. It didn't come back up. She counted that as a miracle. "His name is Marcus Hale," she said. "I know. I know you know. I want to hear you say it anyway." She set the fork down. "His name is Marcus Hale," she said again, and this time her voice was a little steadier. "And he's engaged to me." That's the word he uses. Engaged. "I have a ring. It's in a drawer somewhere in the house on Bellwood Drive. I took it off the second night I tried to leave, about 8 months ago, and he put it back on me in the morning and told me I'd dropped it. He said it like that, like I'd dropped it. He said, 'You should be more careful, baby. You keep losing things.'" Mara at the stove went still. Adrian didn't move. He just watched her face. "He's a lawyer," Lena went on. "He works at Harcourt Greaves. He makes television appearances. He was on a panel last month about protecting women in the workplace. I watched it. I watched it from the floor of a closet because he'd locked me in the closet, and he'd left his laptop on the nightstand, and I could see it through the slats, and I watched him on a screen being articulate about... Her voice cut. She pressed the heel of her hand against her mouth and waited till the thing in her throat passed. "About me," she said finally. "About you how? Not me specifically. Women. The idea of women. He's very good at the idea of women. He gave a whole answer about believing survivors. He said it with his hand over his heart. He actually did that, with the hand. And I sat on the floor of the closet, and my lip was bleeding, and I thought, he believes it. When he says it on television, he believes it. He doesn't think of me as a woman. He thinks of me as something he owns. The category doesn't apply." Adrian's jaw worked, just once. He said nothing. 2 years, she said. "We've been together 2 years. He was charming. He was so..." She stopped herself on the word. Tried again. "He was attentive, the first 3 months. He knew the coffee I drank. He knew the name of my cat. He knew my mother's birthday before I told him. It felt like being known. And then one night at a dinner party, a friend of mine said something. Just a thing, nothing, some joke about law school. And I laughed. And I laughed harder than I should have. I remember that. I remember laughing too hard. And on the drive home, he didn't say anything. He didn't say one word to me. He drove me to his place. He parked. He put his hand on the back of my neck. Not hard, you understand. He never, not that night, not yet. And he said, "Don't ever do that to me again." And I said, "Do what?" And he said it again. "Don't ever do that to me again." And he went into the house, and he made dinner, and he served it. And he smiled at me across the table, and I ate it, and I didn't know what I'd done. That was the first time I apologized for something I didn't understand. I got good at it. She pushed the eggs around on the plate. 6 months in, I moved into his place. "Temporarily," he said. "My lease was up. He was going to help me figure it out. He never helped me figure it out. By month 8, I had no mail coming to my address because I had no address. By month 10, my phone was on his plan because mine was unreliable. By month 12, he'd convinced my mother I was unstable. I don't know how he did it. He's a lawyer. He knows how to build a case. He built one against me and my own family, in front of my own face, and I didn't see it until I was standing outside of it. She realized her hand was shaking again and put it under the table. He hit me for the first time about a year ago. He cried afterward. He sobbed. He knelt on the bathroom floor and he held my ankle and he sobbed and said his father used to hit his mother and he'd promised himself he'd never. And I remember sitting on the edge of the tub with blood in my teeth, patting his head. I was comforting him. That's the worst part of it, actually. I don't know if you understand. That was the worst part. Not that he hit me, that I comforted him for hitting me. I don't think you get to come back from a thing like that. I don't think that part of me is going to grow back. She stopped. Adrian let the silence sit. Last night, she said, towards night, she said, was the 4th time I tried to leave. 3 other times he caught me before I got out the front door. Once he caught me in the garage with my hand on the door handle. He didn't even yell. He just laughed. He laughed and said, "Oh, sweetheart. Oh, come on." Like it was sweet. Like I was a child who'd tried to climb out of her crib. Last night was different. Last night I waited till he was drunk. He had the senator over. He had people over, and they were drinking, and when he's drunk, he gets... She shook her head. He got rough. And something he said, I don't even remember what he said. I just remember hearing it. And my body just... Your body decided for you, Adrian said. She looked at him. Yeah, she said. My body decided for me. I was in the kitchen. I had a glass in my hand. I put the glass down on the counter, and I walked out the back door, and I took my shoes off on the lawn because the heels were slowing me down, and I started running, and I did not stop. I don't remember the first mile. I don't remember deciding to come up this hill. I just remember realizing when I saw your sign that I'd heard your name and that he had been afraid of your name, and that was enough. That was the whole reason. I ran toward the name my fiancé was afraid of. And that was the first time you heard my name, you said. No, he'd mentioned you twice. Tell me the times. She closed her eyes. It helped sometimes to close them. Once, 6 months ago, there was a case he was going to take. A woman. She'd said something happened to her at a charity thing. I don't know the details. I wasn't supposed to know. He came home and he was on the phone in the other room and I heard him say, No, we don't want Voss anywhere near this. Keep it off his desk. I don't care who asks about it. Keep it off his desk. That was the first time. And the second, 3 months later, a man had died. I don't know who. I don't know how. Marcus was reading the paper and he went quiet. He went really quiet. And then he said to nobody, he said, Voss did this. I didn't ask. You learn not to ask, but She opened her eyes. I remembered the name. I remembered the tone. Last night, when I saw your sign on the gate, that was what came back to me. That tone. I didn't think, this is a good man. I thought, this is the man Marcus is afraid of. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's rude. I'm telling you the truth. Bonsoir. Adrian's mouth moved again, that same not quite smile. It's not rude, he said. It's accurate. He picked up his coffee. This time he drank from it. Lena, he said, and it was the first time he'd used her name. He said it carefully, the way you say a word you haven't decided how to feel about. I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to hear it as information, not as comfort. Marcus Hale is not the reason I opened the gate. I opened the gate because you asked me to, because of the way you asked me. If you had been running from anyone, a husband, a boyfriend, a stalker, a stranger, I would have opened it. Do you understand? I don't want you to walk around this house thinking you got in because of a name. Okay, she said, quiet. But, he said, now that you're in, and now that I know it's him, I would be lying to you if I said that didn't matter. It matters. I've known who Marcus Hale is for a long time. He doesn't know I know, which is useful. We're going to keep it that way as long as we can. She nodded slowly. I'm going to ask you one thing, he said. You don't have to answer today. You can answer tomorrow, next week, never. But I'm going to ask you. Okay. Do you want me to help you get out, or do you want me to help you take him down? The question landed in the middle of the table like a coin. She looked at it. She was aware distantly that Mara had turned off the stove and gone to stand very quietly by the window, her hands folded in front of her. She was aware of the weight of the old oak under her forearms. She was aware of her own breathing. She said, "What's the difference?" "Getting out is easier." "And the other?" His face didn't move. "Longer, worse, more expensive, more dangerous. Other people will come into it. Some of them aren't going to make it. I mean that honestly. Some of them don't make it, no matter how careful you are. Getting out, I can have you in another country by the end of the week with papers that will hold up under any audit you'll ever face. You pick the country. Taking him down, I can't promise you anything. I can only promise you that if we do it completely. And that if we do it completely, he can never come near you again. Even from inside, he won't be able to reach you. Those are the two options. There isn't a third." "Isn't there?" "If there is, I don't know it." She sat with the question. The truth was, she didn't know what she wanted yet. Her body still wanted the first answer. It wanted a bed in a country Marcus couldn't find on a map, and a new name, and a window facing the ocean, and the rest of her life to be quiet. Her body had earned that. Her body had been paying rent on terror for 2 years and wanted the lease up. But underneath her body, in the place her body had been sitting on top of to keep it from suffocating, there was something else. A small, hard thing. Not rage, not yet. She didn't have the energy for rage, but something colder than fear which she hadn't felt in a long time. "I want to eat my breakfast," she said. Adrian's mouth did the not smile again. "Good. Eat. I'm not saying no. I didn't hear a no. I'm saying I want to eat my breakfast. And then I want to take a shower that doesn't have a camera over it. And then I want to sit somewhere warm for a while. And then I'll tell you. I'll tell you today. I need a little time." "Take the day," he said. "Take 2. "Okay." Mara at the window said without turning, "Your eggs are cold, honey. Let me redo them." Lena looked down at the plate. "They're fine." "They're not fine. You haven't touched them." "I'm going to." "Eat them then." She ate them. They were cold. It didn't matter. Adrian stood up. "I need to make some calls," he said. "Mara will show you the rest of the house. You don't have to tour it today if you don't want to. But I want you to know where things are, so you don't feel like a guest in a place you have to ask permission to walk through. Nothing in this house is off limits to you except the east wing on the ground floor. And the reason that one is off limits is that there are things in it I don't want anyone to see, not because I'm hiding them from you specifically. You understand the difference?" "Yes." "Good." He paused at the door. "One more thing." "Yes." "Your phone." She stiffened. "I assume you don't have it," he said. "I assume it's in his house. I assume he's been looking at it for 6 hours, and I assume he's been looking at it for the last 2 years. I'll have a new one for you by tonight. Different carrier. The number won't be connected to your name on any database he can reach. The new phone will have some software on it I wrote myself. Without going into it, it means that if anybody tries to track it, I'll know before they do. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. You don't have to tell me who you call on it if you do use it, but I'd like you to have the option of calling somebody if you need to." "Who would I call?" "That's your business, not mine." He left. She sat at the table and ate the rest of her cold eggs, and Mara watched her eat them with the quiet, patient attention of a woman who had watched people eat things after surviving things before. When Lena was done, Mara took the plate without comment and washed it in the sink and set it on a rack, and then she dried her hands on a towel and turned around and leaned against the counter and said, in a different voice than she'd used yet, "Okay, I'll show you the house." The tour was short. There was a sitting room, a library, a music room with a covered piano. Mara said nobody had touched in 5 years, a dining room too big to eat in alone, a back terrace with a view of a walled garden that was, in the morning light, bigger than Lena had realized. A pool somewhere beyond the garden that was drained for the season. A staff wing with 3 small bedrooms, 2 of which were empty, one of which was Mara's. A back staircase that came out in the kitchen. A front staircase that came out in the foyer. A basement with a wine cellar Mara opened the door of for exactly 3 seconds and then shut and said, "That's it. There's nothing down there for you, but now you've seen it, so you know." "Who else lives here?" Lena asked, halfway through. "Mr. Voss, me, and a groundskeeper named Tomas. Tomas sleeps in the guest cottage at the back of the property. He's 62. He doesn't come into the main house unless he's asked. You'll meet him. He's rough around the edges, but he's soft at the center. He's been with Mr. Voss longer than I have." "How long have you been here?" 6 years. "And before that?" Mara paused in the hallway. "Before that," she said, "I was a nurse at St. Anselm's. Mr. Voss offered me a job after my husband died. It pays better. There's more to it than that, but that's the part I tell people when they ask. You're asking, so you get the short version." "Okay. If you stay a while, you'll get the long one." "Okay," Lena said again. Mara nodded once and kept walking. Halfway through the tour, the doorbell rang. Mara stopped. Lena stopped. The sound of the bell itself was old, brass, mechanical, nothing electronic about it, the kind of bell a house this age had had for a century. Mara looked toward the foyer. Then she looked at Lena, and something in her face changed. Not a big thing, just a small tightening. "Stay here," she said. "Who is it?" "I don't know. Stay here." Mara walked off toward the front. Lena, because she was Lena and had spent 2 years learning that stay here meant something is about to happen that you're going to want to know about, counted to 5, then followed, barefoot, on the runner, silent. From the curve of the second-floor landing, she could see down into the foyer. Adrian was already at the door. He'd opened it with the chain still on. Through the crack, Lena could see a man standing on the front steps. Not Marcus, not Marcus. A different man, tall, thin, a gray suit, a leather folder under one arm. The man was holding up a badge, speaking in an even, professional voice. "Detective Reyes, Arcanum Bay PD, missing persons. I'm sorry to call on you so early, Mr. Voss. I'm looking for a woman who was reported missing by her fiancé last night. Lena Cross. Mr. Hale has reason to believe she may have come up this way. I understand this is a private road, but if you've seen anything, if any of your cameras caught anything." Adrian looked at the badge. Then, without taking the chain off, he said, "Let me see that badge again." The detective held it up. "Closer," Adrian said. The detective stepped closer, held it against the gap. Adrian studied it. "Detective Reyes," he said. "8th Precinct." "That's right. You were on the Hollis case in February." A pause. Just a flicker. Lena could see it even from the stairs. "That's right," the detective said again. "How's your daughter?" A longer pause. She's good. Thanks for asking, Mr. Voss." "Good. Glad to hear it." Adrian's voice didn't change at all. "Detective, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd like an honest answer. Did you come here because a missing persons report crossed your desk through official channels? Or did you come because Marcus Hale called a friend of a friend sometime between 3 and 5 a.m., and a favor was asked, and the favor traveled down the chain until it landed on you?" Silence on the step. "Mr. Voss," "Detective, just the answer." The man on the step exhaled through his nose. Lena could see the plume of it in the cold morning. "It came through a channel," he said low. "It didn't come up clean." "Thank you for that." "Mr. Voss, I've got a job." "You do?" "If she's here," I'm not saying she's here, but if she is, at some point this thing's going to get walked up properly. I can't unmake the call. I can slow it down. I can lose a file for a day. I can't lose a file for a week. A day is more than I asked for. I didn't offer it. You did. You just don't know you did yet." The detective was quiet. "How's your daughter, Detective?" Adrian said again, softer. She's good, Mr. Voss. She's doing good. Tell her Uncle A says hi." "I will." "And Detective." "Yeah. Marcus Hale is not going to be in a position to collect favors for very much longer. When it happens, it's going to happen fast. Anybody in a gray area, Anybody who did something small for him, the kind of thing a good cop might do for a guy he thinks is a good guy, those people are going to have a window. A short one. If you want to be in that window when it closes, you let me know. If you don't, don't. I'm not asking you to do anything today. I'm telling you something for later. Understood? Have a good morning, detective. You too, Mr. Voss. The door closed. Adrian took the chain off slowly and then put the chain back on. Slowly, and stood for a moment with his hand on the door, and then he turned and looked straight up at the landing where Lena was standing. He'd known she was there the whole time. She didn't move. He didn't tell her to come down. He just looked at her, and she looked back at him, and something passed between them that wasn't friendship and wasn't trust exactly, but was the first draft of both. He's already called a cop, she said from the landing. Yes. He's going to keep calling people. Yes. He has a senator, and there's a judge he plays golf with, and there's a man at the paper. I know. You know? I've known for about 4 years, Adrian said. I've been waiting for a reason. She sat down on the top step. She hadn't meant to. Her legs had just sort of folded. Mara appeared at the bottom of the stairs and looked up at her and said, without asking, "Tea," and vanished into the kitchen. Adrian came up the stairs, slowly, not crowding her. He stopped 2 steps below her so that his eyes were almost level with hers, and he leaned his forearms on the banister. "Lena," he said. "Yeah, you asked me in the kitchen what the difference was between getting out and taking him down. I remember. I'm going to tell you a piece of something because you just watched a detective stand on my porch, and I don't want you to put yourself together with a piece missing. Marcus Hale is not the only one. I wasn't going to say that today. I was going to wait. But it isn't a thing I want you to find out by surprise on a Tuesday. There is a group of them. They don't have a name because men like that never give themselves a name. Names are for people who want to be found. They share things, information, access, women, other things. Marcus is not the top of it. He's not the bottom either. He's somewhere in the middle, which I want you to understand is in some ways the worst place to be. Because a man in the middle has things to prove. A man in the middle will do things a man at the top won't touch. How do you know this? I know a lot of things. I'm not going to tell you how I know all of them. I'll tell you this one. 4 years ago, a woman came up to this gate the way you came up to this gate last night. Her name was Celia. She was 23 years old. She didn't ring the bell. She was unconscious by the time I found her, and she died on the floor of my front hall while Mara tried to keep her breathing. I wasn't fast enough. I was on the phone in the study. I didn't hear the gate alert for, I don't know, a minute and a half, maybe 2. She'd gotten as far as the porch under her own power, and then she hadn't been able to get to the bell. She died 3 feet from this door. He wasn't looking at her when he said it. He was looking at the banister under his hands. I have spent the last 4 years, he went on, figuring out who she was running from. I have names. I have a great deal, actually. I haven't moved on any of it because moving on it in pieces doesn't work. These men protect each other. You pull on one of them, the rest close ranks. You have to pull on all of them at once. I have been waiting for the pull. I have been waiting to know, to really know, in a way that a court can hold, that they're all there. I have been waiting for a witness who is alive. He looked up at her. I didn't open my gate last night because you were running from Marcus Hale, he said. I opened it because you were running. I want to be very clear about that. I'm not going to use you. I'm not going to ask you to do anything you don't choose. If you tell me tomorrow that you want to be in another country by Sunday, you will be in another country by Sunday, and every promise I made about protecting you will still be good. I'll protect you from half a world away. That's the deal. That's the whole deal, with no fine print. But, Lena said, he said, if you choose the other thing, I want you to know what you're walking into. There are 4 names I know for sure. There are probably 6 or 7 more. They're the people you would expect. The kind of people you would expect. This is not a small fight. It is a very, very large fight. And it has been waiting for 4 years for a person with something to say. If you want to be that person, you will not be alone. You will be the center of a kind of storm I do not think you fully understand yet, but you will not be alone. I want you to hear that part. You will not be alone in it for a single second. She didn't speak. Mara came up the stairs with a mug of tea, handed it to her without a word, and went back down. Lena wrapped both hands around the mug. You said... Her voice cracked. She cleared it. You said there was evidence of another. I didn't say that. Not yet, he said gently. Let's not say that yet. Today we said what we said. Today was enough. Is there another one? He was quiet for a long time. Yes, he said. Alive. I believe so. Where? Not today, Lena. Where? Not today. She closed her eyes. The tea was hot in her hands. The banister was cold under her wrist. The house was warm and quiet. Her feet hurt. Her ribs hurt. Her mouth hurt. Down in the foyer, the front door was locked. At the gate, the iron was shut. Somewhere in the city, Marcus was on the phone with men who were already making calls of their own, and somewhere else in the city, a woman she hadn't met yet was sitting in a room she wasn't supposed to be in under a name that wasn't hers, and she had no idea that a stranger in a torn silk dress had just made it up a hill in a storm. Lena opened her eyes. Okay, she said. Adrian waited. Okay, she said again. Not the first thing, the second thing. I want the second thing. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He didn't do any of the things a man in a movie would have done. He just looked at her for a long moment, the way he'd looked at her on the porch the night before, top of her head to the bandages on her feet, measuring, weighing, cataloging. And then, very quietly, he said, all right, just that, all right. The same two words in the same flat voice that had meant, the night before, I am going to catch you when your knee gives out. She drank her tea. Downstairs, the doorbell didn't ring again that morning. It would ring before the week was out 3 more times. 2 of those times, Adrian would answer it the same way he'd answered it for the detective, with the chain on, with a name from some other case in his mouth, with a soft, unhurried question about a child, a mother, a wife. One of those times, he would answer it without the chain, and the man on the step would hand him a sealed manila envelope without saying a word, and Adrian would take it, and the man would leave. And Adrian would carry the envelope into the study and close the door, and Mara would tell Lena in the kitchen in a low voice, don't ask tonight. He'll tell you in the morning if he wants to, but that was later. For now, Lena Cross sat on the top step of a strange house in borrowed clothes, with a mug of tea and 2 bandaged feet, and a small, hard, cold thing in her chest, where fear had been, and she understood, for the first time in 2 years, that the thing she'd been running from was also, finally, a thing she could turn and face. She didn't feel brave. She didn't feel whole. She just felt, for the first time in a very long time, like a person with a door at her back that was going to stay shut. And for that morning, in that house, that was enough to be going on with. The doorbell rang twice more that week, and by Friday morning, the house on Ridgemont Hill had stopped feeling, to Lena, like someone else's. It happened in small pieces, the way most real changes happen. The first night she'd slept in snatches with her hand braced against the headboard. The second night she'd made it almost 4 hours before she sat up swinging at nothing. By the fourth night she'd slept nearly all the way through, and when she opened her eyes to a gray sky, she'd lain there for a long time just listening to the house breathe. The soft tick of radiators, the creak of old beams adjusting to the morning, Thomas somewhere far off, hauling fallen branches out of the side garden and cursing softly at each one. Ordinary sounds. They were more medicine than any of the pills Mara had offered her, and she'd declined. Adrian didn't crowd her. That was the thing she kept noticing, and kept not knowing what to do with. He didn't ask how she'd slept. He didn't ask if she needed anything. He didn't look at her the way Marcus's friends had looked at her, over the rims of their champagne flutes, with the polite, assessing look of men who were deciding whether her pain was a turn-on or a turn-off. Adrian Voss looked at her, when he looked at her at all, the way a man looks at a structural beam in a building he owns. He was checking it was still bearing weight. If it wasn't, he'd deal with that. If it was, he'd move on. On the third morning, she'd come down to breakfast and found him already at the kitchen table with a laptop open and a stack of folders beside his coffee. He hadn't looked up. He'd said, without stopping what he was reading, eggs again, or do you want to try something else today? And she'd said, Something else, I think. And he'd said, Mara, something else, without raising his voice, and Mara had appeared in the doorway and said, toast and jam, oatmeal, or a proper breakfast sandwich? And Lena had said, the sandwich, with the first flicker of something like appetite she'd felt in 2 years, and Adrian had turned a page in his folder and smiled at the paper without showing it to her. She noticed that, the small private smile. She filed it. She also noticed the folders. They grew across the week. On Monday there had been one. By Tuesday, there were 3. By Wednesday she came down and there were 6, and a second laptop and a small printer that hadn't been there the day before, and a map of the city unfolded across a side table with pins in it in 2 colors. On Thursday, a young woman Lena hadn't met yet had arrived through the back gate at 6 in the morning. Thin, red-haired, a canvas bag over her shoulder, no makeup, the kind of tired around the eyes that didn't come from a bad night, but from a lifetime of them. Mara had let her in without comment. Adrian had met her in the study, closed the door, and they'd been in there for 3 hours. When the red-haired woman came out, she'd walked past Lena in the hall, paused, and said, "You're Lena," in the voice of someone who was very tired and very used to meeting people in bad states. "I'm Jules. I'll be around. I'm not here to ask you anything. If you want to talk at some point, I work with Adrian. I don't work for him. There's a difference. You'll figure out what it is." Then Jules had walked out without waiting for an answer. Lena had stood in the hall for a minute afterward. She'd realized halfway through that minute that Jules's voice had reminded her of something, and it had taken her until the evening to place it. It was the voice of the woman who'd run the domestic violence hotline she'd called once, 18 months ago, from a gas station bathroom, and hung up on 40 seconds in when she'd heard Marcus's car pull up outside. That same voice, tired, flat, patient. The voice of a person who had sat on the other end of a lot of telephones on a lot of bad nights. She didn't know yet that Jules had sat on that phone, that night. She would find out later. But the recognition did something to her chest the rest of the day. A small, warm thing she couldn't name. Adrian's folders were about the network. He told her that on the 4th morning at the kitchen table when she finally asked. He told her in the same flat voice he told her everything in. The voice of a man handing you information and letting you decide what to feel about it. "There are 4 names I'm certain of," he said. His coffee was in his hand. "Marcus is one of them. There is a man named Theodore Beckwith. There is a man named Ira Lenz. And there is a man named Cole Ashford. Marcus is a lawyer. Beckwith owns 2 hotels and 5 restaurants and a great deal of the nightlife in the Wharf District. Lenz is a state assemblyman. Ashford is the one we will have the most trouble with. He's Commissioner Ashford, as in police commissioner." Lena set down her fork. "Eat," Adrian said without looking up. "I can't eat with that in the room." "Yes, you can. You will have to eat with worse than that in the room before this is done. Eat." She picked the fork back up. "There are 3 other names, I suspect," he went on. "I won't say them yet. Suspicion in this house gets you killed. Confirmation gets you out. For now, those are the 4. They share information, women, money. They run a kind of, I don't have a clean word for it. A service is the cleanest word. There are women they share who know they are being shared and are paid and have chosen it, and those women are not our concern. There are other women they share who did not choose it and could not leave and were not paid, and some of whom are not currently alive. Those women are our concern. Marcus is in charge of a specific part of that. He is in charge of the part where a woman, once she has been identified as not going to go quietly, is moved somewhere where she can be managed until she stops being a problem. Do you understand what I am telling you? I understand. Say it. He was going to put me somewhere. Yes. He was going to put me somewhere the way he put... She stopped. Adrian waited. "The other one," Lena said. Her voice was small. "The one you said was still alive." "Yes. You said you'd tell me about her. You said not today. Is today today?" He looked at her for a long moment. He had a way of looking at her that felt less like being watched and more like being listened to with his eyes. Marcus had never looked at her that way. Marcus's eyes had always been calculating a response. Adrian's were calculating a truth. "Today is today," he said finally. He went to the study and came back with a single folder, thinner than the others. He set it on the table between them. He didn't open it. Her name, he said, the name she was born with, is Nora Avery. She grew up in a town north of here called Fallbrook Mills. She moved to the city at 19. She worked as a paralegal. She was 26 when she met Theodore Beckwith at a charity event at one of his hotels. He was 47. She moved in with him in under 6 months. 3 months after that, she told a friend she wanted to leave him. A week after that, she was in a psychiatric facility called Riverbend Oaks, 2 counties over, under the name Eleanor Miller. She was admitted as a ward of the state after what her admission papers describe as a, quote, acute dissociative episode with attempted self-harm. The papers are signed by a doctor who has since lost his license for unrelated reasons. She has been at Riverbend Oaks for 4 years. She is medicated into compliance. She has 2 visitors on her approved list. Beckwith is one. The other is a man I don't need to name today. She has not spoken to a member of her biological family in 4 years. Wait. Jesus, Lena whispered. Don't say that. Sorry. Don't apologize. Don't waste the word. Save it. How do you know all this? I know a nurse. The nurse knows the doctor. The nurse's daughter is alive because a man named Adrian Voss paid for 3 surgeries 5 years ago and didn't put his name on any of the paperwork. The nurse has been telling me about Riverbend Oaks for 2 years. She has been telling me about Nora specifically for 8 months. The nurse is a good woman. She has not moved on this yet because if she moves on this alone, Nora will be dead within a week. And the nurse's daughter will be unemployed within 2, and the nurse will be unemployable within a month. She has been waiting for a larger mechanism. I am the larger mechanism. I have been trying to build it. Now you are here, and some of the pieces I did not have, I have. Lena pressed both hands flat against the table. The wood was warm. She tried to let that be enough. You want to get her out. I want to get her out. When? Before we move on the rest of them. If we don't get her out first, they will use her, kill her, move her, trade her. She is the loose thread they will pull the hardest when they feel the sweater unraveling. She has to be out before they feel a single thread. That is a very hard thing to do. Riverbend Oaks is not a prison. In a prison, you break a wall. This is a hospital. In a hospital, you break paperwork. Paperwork is harder. Paperwork has lawyers. You have lawyers. I have lawyers, he agreed. I have one specifically. Her name is Delphine Park. You will meet her tomorrow. She is the person who is going to walk Nora out the front door, if we do this right, in broad daylight, with a court order that turns out, by the end of the day, to be unchallengeable. That is the goal. We have not yet built the order. We are building it this week. What do you need from me? Eat your sandwich. Adrian. It was the first time she'd said his name. She hadn't meant to. It came out a little rough. He paused. He registered it. He let it sit between them for a second without commenting on it, which was, somehow, the most generous thing he could have done. What I need from you, he said, at some point, but not today, is a statement. A very particular kind of statement. About Marcus. About specific nights, specific rooms, specific people who were in those rooms. About what he told you. About what you saw. About what you heard through doors you weren't supposed to be behind. I don't need it all at once. I need it clean. Delphine will sit with you for it, not me. Because the chain of custody on a statement like that needs to come through a lawyer, not through me. When you are ready to start, you tell Delphine, not me. That will keep a specific kind of distance between us that will matter later. Do you understand why? Because you'll be a witness too. He looked at her a little longer than he needed to. Yes, he said, quiet. Because I will be a witness too. You're quick. I had a lot of time to get quick. Yes, you did. She looked down at the folder. She didn't open it. She didn't want to see the woman's face yet. She was afraid of what it would do to her. When we get her out, Lena said, what happens to her? Comes here. Here. This house was not built for one man. You've been here a week. You've seen how much of it is closed. There's a wing on the second floor I have not walked through in 3 years. There's enough room. Mara can take care of her. Jules will come every day. She will have what you have. A door with a lock only on her side. A window that looks out on a garden. She will have time. She will have a very long time. That is the part we can give her. The rest she will have to grow back on her own. Some of it will grow back, some of it will not. You know that as well as I do. She was crying, quiet, without noticing. A tear had hit the back of her hand. I'm sorry, she said. Don't apologize. I keep crying. I haven't cried and I didn't cry for a long time. I stopped. And now I won't. It's okay. I don't want to be a person who cries every 10 minutes. I want to be somebody you can actually use. Stop. She stopped. He leaned forward, just slightly. He didn't touch her. He hadn't touched her since he'd set her down on the couch the first night. She was increasingly aware of it, of the not touching, of the deliberate, patient, almost surgical way he gave her space. You are not a tool, he said. I'm not going to use you. I told you that the first morning. If I use you, I've made you into another thing he made you into, and then I'm no better than he is, and then this whole house and everything in it is a lie. So we don't do that. You are a person who is going to choose on her own time what part of this she wants to carry. You're crying because your nervous system has been locked in a bad position for 2 years, and it is finally unlocking, and the unlocking looks like crying. The unlocking is supposed to look like that. Let it look like that. You are not going to cry forever. You're going to cry for a while, and then you are going to be, I think, a person I would not want to cross. But right now, you're crying. That is fine. That is the work. Don't apologize for the work. She wiped her face with the back of her wrist. Eat your sandwich, he said again. I mean it. Mara made it with the good bacon. She doesn't do that for everybody. She almost laughed. It was the first time in 2 years she'd almost laughed in front of a man. She didn't entirely know what to do with the feeling. It sat in her chest like a bird she hadn't seen in a long time. She let it stay. She ate the sandwich. It was good. Delphine Park arrived the next morning in a charcoal suit with no rings on her hands and a leather briefcase that had seen a lot of weather. She was 50, maybe a little more, Korean-American, cropped silver hair, a face that gave nothing away until it chose to. She didn't shake Lena's hand when they met. She held up her own hands, empty, palms out, a gesture Lena recognized after a second. I am not going to touch you unless you ask me to. It had been in some pamphlet somewhere. Lena had read the pamphlet once 2 years ago in a waiting room and put it down and never picked it up again. Seeing the gesture in a real live woman's hands in a real live room made her eyes sting. Miss Cross. Lena is fine. Lena then, I'm Delphine. I'm going to be your lawyer for the parts of this that are legal. Adrian is going to be Adrian for the parts that are Adrian. Mara is going to be Mara. Jules is Jules. Each of us is a different job. You don't have to confuse us. If you ever feel unclear on who is who, you ask. Nobody in this house is going to be offended by the question. Shall we sit? They sat. They sat, in fact, for 3 hours. In the library, with the door closed, with a small recorder on the table between them that Delphine had explained, in detail, before she turned it on. Delphine had explained everything in detail. She explained the recorder. She explained what would happen to the recording. She explained where the recording would be stored, who would have access to it, who would not. She explained that Lena could stop at any time. She explained that Lena could ask to have anything taken out. She explained that Lena could take a break, eat something, cry, scream, go upstairs, and come back in an hour, a day, a week. She explained that there was no wrong way to do this. I have to tell you one other thing, Delphine said before she turned the recorder on, and it is going to make you angry at me. And I want you to be angry at me, because being angry at me is a thing you are allowed to do, and nothing will happen to you because of it. Here's the thing. I am going to ask you questions that you will feel are unkind. I'm going to ask them because at some point, possibly in a courtroom, possibly in a deposition, possibly in a room with a lot of men who are paid to be extremely unkind to you, somebody else is going to ask them. I am going to ask them first, here, with the door closed, with Mara across the hall, so that when those other people ask, you will have already answered. You will have already heard yourself say the answer out loud. It will not be the first time. That is, in my experience, the single most useful thing I can do for you. Do you understand? Lena breathed in, breathed out. Yes. Good. If at any point I ask something that feels wrong, unsafe, you say so. I stop. I am the lawyer. You are the client. You tell me what to do. I do it. Inside of that relationship, I can be as hard as I need to be. Outside of it, I am, unfortunately, a rather soft person. Adrian laughs at me about this. He is not wrong. Lena, almost against her will, smiled a little. Okay, Delphine said. Recorder on. She turned it on. It went about the way Lena had thought it would, and then, in the middle, it went somewhere else. Delphine led her through it in chronological order. She asked about the first dinner with Marcus, what they had eaten, where, who the waiter had been, who had paid, what Marcus had said in their first hour alone together that had, in hindsight, been the first flag. Lena had not thought about that hour in a long time. She found, as she talked, that she remembered more of it than she wanted to. Delphine did not interrupt, but every so often she would stop and say quietly, "Back up 10 seconds. When he said that, did you feel anything in your body?" And Lena would close her eyes and would remember, actually physically remember, a small tightening behind her sternum 2 years ago, across a small table in a restaurant on Canal Street. She hadn't had a name for it then. She had one now. Delphine didn't rush. She didn't pity. She didn't flinch. When Lena cried, Delphine passed her a tissue and waited. When Lena said, halfway through, "I think I need 10 minutes, Delphine said, "Take 20, and got up and walked out, and Lena put her head down on the arm of the chair and just breathed. Mara came in with water, put it down, didn't say a word, walked out. Lena came back to the table after 23 minutes. Delphine was there already, as if she'd never left. "Ready? Ready?" They went for another hour. At the end, Delphine turned off the recorder, and she sat for a long moment without saying anything, and then she said, in a voice that was softer than any voice she had used all morning, "Lena, I want you to hear something. This has nothing to do with the case. I am saying it as a person, not as your lawyer. I have done this work for 26 years. I have heard, I cannot even tell you how many of these. I want you to know that you were not. None of what happened to you is because of anything in you. He chose you the way a certain kind of man chooses. You are not responsible for having been chosen. You are not responsible for having stayed. You are not responsible for the 2 years. You are not responsible, in particular, for the nights you comforted him after he hurt you. That is not a weakness in your character. That is a response your body made because your body wanted to live, and in the moment, comforting him was what survived. You survived. That is the only job your body had, and it did it. Do you hear me? I hear you. Say it. I hear you. Delphine nodded once. Then she stood up, picked up her briefcase, and said briskly, in her lawyer voice, "All right, I'm going to go tell Adrian we did a good morning's work, and he's going to pretend he wasn't worried. Eat lunch. I'll be back tomorrow." She left. Lena sat at the library table for a long time, alone, her hand on the recorder that wasn't running anymore, and cried the way people cry when something in them is finally being allowed to leak instead of leak. She slept hard that night, harder than she had slept in years. In the morning, she went down to the kitchen, and Jules was there at the table, eating a bowl of oatmeal and looking at her phone. Jules looked up, said, "Hey," in her tired, patient voice, and went back to her phone. Lena sat across from her. "You're the red-haired woman," Lena said. "I'm the red-haired woman." "You were on the phone." Jules didn't pretend not to know what she meant. She lowered the phone. "When?" "August. 18 months ago. A Tuesday. It was raining. I was at a gas station on Glover and 8th, the men's room because the women's was locked. There was a crisis hotline sticker on the mirror. I called the number. I was on the line for 30 or 40 seconds. A woman picked up. I think. I hung up." Jules set the phone face down. "I remember that call," she said after a moment. "I remember because you didn't hang up hard. Most people hang up hard. You hung up soft. I remember. I stayed on for a couple of seconds after. That's a thing you learn to do. I said, 'You can call back, I'm here,' in case you were still there. You weren't. His car was outside. I know that's how it goes. I knew that was probably how it went. I wanted to tell you I got out. I'm here. I'm sorry it took me so long. I'm sorry Stop. Don't apologize. Everybody keeps telling me to stop apologizing. That's because you keep apologizing for the wrong things. Jules's tired face cracked into a slow, crooked smile. You're doing great, kid. Lena sat with that for a second. I'm not a kid, she said, but gently. No, you're not. I call everybody kid. It's a thing I do. It's not respectful. I'm aware. It's mostly about me. Lena laughed, a small, startled laugh, her second laugh in 2 years. Jules went back to her phone, satisfied, and the thing in Lena's chest that had been a bird became, for a second, 2 birds. She had laughed twice now. In 2 years, in 2 days. She was, she realized, going to laugh again. The math of it was going to keep going. She didn't know when it would catch up exactly, but there was now a rate. She was a person with a rate. She had forgotten that she had ever been a person with a rate. The doorbell rang on the 5th day, late afternoon. Adrian answered it with the chain off. He'd been expecting someone, and a woman walked in. Late 40s, sharp face, nurse's scrubs under a gray coat. Her hair was pulled back so tight the skin at her temples shone. She was carrying a manila folder against her chest the way a mother carries a child, and her eyes, when they found Lena in the hall, were wet and red and angry. This is her, Adrian said. I guessed. Lena, this is Naomi. Naomi is the nurse at Riverbend Oaks. Lena stood up slowly. You're the one who's been... I'm the one. She's still alive. Naomi's voice cracked on the word alive, and she put a hand over her mouth for a second and then took it down, angry at the crack. She's alive. She's not good. I want you all to understand that before we do this. She has been on a cocktail of things for 4 years that have, I'll say this plainly, she is not the woman Theodore Beckwith met at a charity event. She is not going to be that woman again. Parts of her are going to be gone. That is the truth of it. I want that understood before we walk her out the front door. Because, Adrian, you have a habit of promising people things you then have to deliver, and I do not want you to promise her family that they are getting back what they lost. They're not. They're getting something new. It might, given time, be someone they love. It will not be who they remember. I want to be clear about that. Noted, Adrian said quietly. Naomi set the folder on the small table in the foyer. She didn't open it. She put her hand flat on top of it. In here, she said, is 4 years of medication logs. Every milligram they gave her, every injection, every new doctor's signature, every switch and reswitch, and the exact weeks Beckwith visited and the exact 48 hours before and after those visits where her dosages spiked. It is not speculative. It is not circumstantial. It is a document an honest judge could read in 20 minutes and sign a removal order on the spot. Is there an honest judge? There's one. Garrison, 4th District. He's an odd duck. He's clean. He has been waiting, for different reasons, for a case that would let him do something he has been wanting to do for about 10 years. He will take this. I have talked to a person who has talked to a person. The order will be signed on Wednesday. Delphine will walk in at 9 a.m. with the order and a marshal. We will have Nora in Adrian's car by 10. And Beckwith, Lena said. Her voice was not quite steady. Naomi looked at her. Beckwith, Naomi said, is not going to know Nora is gone until 4 in the afternoon. The facility is going to hold the notification. Not because we are asking them to, we're not, but because the facility, when Beckwith finds out, is going to have to explain how it lost a patient it had been. It had been renting, essentially, for 4 years. They're going to spend 3 or 4 hours figuring out how to tell him. Those 3 or 4 hours are the window in which Nora will become nearly impossible to find. By the time Beckwith starts looking, she's here, Lena said. She's here. And then, what? Then we go. Then we go, Adrian said from the doorway. He'd been standing there, listening, with his hand on the frame. Then we have her, and we have you, and we have your statement. Then Delphine and a team she trusts go to the Attorney General's office with an unannounced appointment because Delphine's niece works in that office, and the timing will be tight. Then the Attorney General has 48 hours before the story breaks publicly, because it will break publicly. I intend that it breaks publicly, to decide whether she wants to be the person who moved on this or the person who got moved around by it. She is a smart woman. She will choose correctly. Then, the gala, Lena said. Adrian paused. Yes, he said. The gala. She didn't know yet how she had known. It had just been there, in her mouth, at the end of the sentence. Some instinct had arrived early. Marcus had talked about the gala for 6 months, the Fairmount Charitable Foundation's annual benefit. It had been his white whale, that gala. He'd bought her dress for it 3 months ago. He'd had the tailor adjust it twice. He'd told her, in the last fitting, with his hand on the small of her back, and the tailor pretending not to hear, "You'll be the most beautiful woman in the room, baby. You do not embarrass me that night. You do not say one wrong thing. You smile. You smile and you stand there and you let them look at you. That's the whole job." She'd nodded at him in the mirror. She'd nodded at him in the mirror, and she hadn't cried and she hadn't flinched, and she had not imagined in her wildest that a month later she would be standing in the foyer of Adrian Voss's house with a nurse named Naomi and a manila folder about a woman named Nora, and that the dress, that very dress, was still, presumably, hanging in a closet on Bellwood Drive, and that she was going to walk into that ballroom in it. She said it before she thought it. "I'm wearing the dress he bought me." Adrian looked at her. "You don't have to." "I know. You don't have to do any of it." "I know. I'm saying it again because it's going to come up. And I don't want you to do this because you think you owe me something, or Nora something, or some idea of yourself something. You can walk away from this tomorrow. You can walk away from this Wednesday morning. You can walk away from this at the door of the ballroom. I'll put you in a car. Nothing about the rest of it stops because you step out. Do you hear me?" "I hear you." "Then why the dress?" "Because," Lena said, and her voice was very quiet, but it was steady. "He picked it. He picked it to make me into a thing he had made. To walk into that room as the thing he made. And I'm going to walk into that room in his dress, and I'm going to stop being a thing he made, in front of every person he has ever tried to impress, on the night he has been waiting on for 6 months. It has to be that dress." I don't want another dress. That is the dress. That is the door I am walking through, okay?" A long silence. Naomi, at the little table, put her hand over her mouth again, and this time she didn't take it down right away. Adrian's jaw worked once. "Okay," he said. Just that. "Okay." The same okay from the study, the same okay from the stairs. A word he used like a brick. You could build a wall out of his okays. She could lean against the wall. She was leaning against it now. Mara came out of the kitchen at some point during the silence, because Mara had a sense for silences, and she was carrying 4 mugs of tea on a tray, and she set the tray down on the foyer table next to the manila folder, and she said, "Drink, all of you. We are about to do a great deal of work, and the tea will help." They drank. Naomi left at 7 with Adrian walking her to her car. Jules left at 7:30, giving Lena's shoulder a brief, awkward pat on her way out that was somehow the warmest thing that had happened to Lena in a week. Delphine called at 8. Mara reheated the dinner nobody had eaten, and Adrian and Lena sat at the kitchen table under the hanging brass lamp and ate it. A thick, dark stew with bread. And for a long stretch, neither of them talked. The house was quiet around them. The radiators ticked. Somewhere in the garden, a nightbird called once, and once more, and then didn't. "Adrian?" "Yes?" "Celia." He stopped chewing. "Yes," he said. "You said she died on your floor." "Yes." Was she one of Beckwith's?" He set his spoon down very carefully. "No," he said. "She was Lenz's." "Oh, she was 19. She had been with him for 4 months. I had met her once at a fundraiser in passing. I had spoken to her for perhaps 90 seconds. She remembered that. I did not know she remembered that. She came to my gate 8 months later. The route she took to my house, we figured this out afterward, Tomas and I, retracing it, was 12 miles. She had walked. Some of it she had walked. Some of it she had been. Carried is the best word I have. Some of it she had crawled. I should not tell you all of this tonight. It is not a story for tonight. Tell me anyway. He looked at her. He looked at her for a long time. "All right," he said. And so he told her about Celia, about the 90 seconds at a fundraiser, about the way the girl had said his name back to him. "Mr. Voss, nice to meet you. I'm Celia. I work at the auction table." Like she was rehearsing it, as if the name were something she was going to need to remember. About the phone call he had been on, in the study, 8 months later, when the gate alert had chimed and he had silenced it because he had been talking to a man in Rotterdam about a container ship and had not looked at the feed, about how long he had been on that call, about the moment he had walked out into the foyer and seen the front door open, and Mara on the stone by the threshold, and the girl on the stone next to Mara, and Mara with both hands on the girl's chest, and her hair down around her face in a way Adrian had never seen Mara's hair. About how the girl had opened her eyes exactly once, looked at him, and said very clearly, "I'm sorry, I tried to be quiet," and then died. Lena did not interrupt. She did not cry. She did not move. When he finished, he was staring at the table. His spoon was still on the tablecloth where he'd set it down. His hands were folded. He was not a man who cried. He didn't cry now, but something in his face had gone very still in a way that Lena thought was more expensive for him than crying would have been. "Adrian." "Yes." "You didn't kill her." "I know." "You know." "I know, Lena. I have had 4 years of people telling me I didn't kill her. I know I didn't. I also know that if I had picked up the phone alert at the gate 3 minutes earlier, she would be alive. Both things are true. I live with both. I am not asking you to take one of them off me. You can't. It's mine." "Okay. Okay." They sat a while longer. "Nora," Lena said finally, "is going to walk in through that door on Wednesday, and she is going to be alive." "Yes. And when she walks in, you are going to have..." "Yes." "You'll have gotten one." "Yes." "That's... Adrian. That's one." "It's one. I'm going to be 2. He looked up at her. "Lena." "I am. If we do this right, I'm 2. You are going to have gotten 2. You don't have to carry Celia alone anymore. Not that she goes away. I know she doesn't go away. But you are going to have gotten 2 out. You have to let yourself have that. You have to." Her voice broke. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Adrian sat across from her at the old oak table, under the hanging brass lamp, in a house that had been too big for him for 4 years. And he looked at a woman in borrowed sweatpants with bandaged feet, who, a week ago, he had carried across his own threshold, and something in his face, finally, did the thing it hadn't done in a long time. It wasn't a smile. It was smaller than that, and more. It was the face of a man who had been carrying a thing alone for a long time, and who had just, very quietly, realized that he was not going to have to carry it alone at the end. "Eat your bread," he said, after a long moment. His voice was rough. She almost laughed. She ate her bread. Outside, the wind had started up again. Not a storm this time, just a cold, clean wind off the bay, moving through the cypress on the drive, shaking the last of the storm-broken branches loose. The house around them was warm. The radiators ticked. In the study, the monitors were running. In the foyer, the chain was on. Up the hill, at the gate, the iron was shut. Wednesday was 4 days away. On Wednesday, at 9 in the morning, a lawyer named Delphine Park was going to walk into a facility called Riverbend Oaks with a court order that an odd, clean judge named Garrison was going to sign on Tuesday afternoon, and a woman named Nora Avery was going to be walked out a front door she had not seen in 4 years, and would be by 10 asleep in a back seat of a black car, in borrowed clothes, on the way up a hill to a house she did not know yet existed. And 10 days after that, 9, if the weather held, in a ballroom with 20-foot ceilings and a chandelier that had been made in Austria before any of them were born, a woman in a pale blue silk dress that a man had picked out for her 6 months ago was going to walk through a pair of doors, and a number of men were going to look up, and a number of men were going to understand, in the same instant, that they had misjudged, very badly, which of the people in the room that night was the predator. But that was later. Tonight was this. Tonight was bread and stew and a brass lamp, and 2 people at a table, and a wind outside moving the cypress, and a long, slow exhale that neither of them commented on, because some exhales are like the small smile in the morning, a private thing, a first draft of a future, not yet a thing you name out loud. Mara stood at the kitchen doorway for a second, saw them, and went back to the hall without either of them noticing. She was smiling too. She didn't hide it, because there was no one left in the hall to see. Wednesday came in gray. Lena woke at 4:40 and lay with her eyes open in the dark, listening to the house. She had gotten good, over the last 10 days, at listening to the house. She knew the difference now between the radiator in the hall and the radiator in her room. She knew which stair third from the top creaked and which one didn't. She knew that if Mara was awake, there would be a thin line of light under the door at the far end of the corridor, because Mara read in bed before she came down, and Mara never read on her phone. That morning, there was already a line of light. Lena got up. Her feet had healed enough that she didn't need the thickest bandages anymore. Mara had switched her, 2 days ago, to a pair of soft cloth liners and a pair of leather moccasins Tomas had brought back from town, and the moccasins made no sound on the runner. She moved down the hall without turning on a light, past Mara's door, down the back stairs, into the kitchen where the light over the sink was already on, and a kettle was already on the burner just under the point where it would start to whistle. And Adrian Voss was already at the table, fully dressed, not eating. He had a cup of coffee. He hadn't drunk it. "You didn't sleep," she said. "A little." "How little?" 2 hours, maybe." "Adrian." "I know." She sat. She took the cup from in front of him, not asking, and drank from it. It was cold. She made a face. He reached over, took it back, walked it to the sink, dumped it, came back with 2 fresh mugs and poured from a fresh pot that had already been brewing, black for him, milky for her. He set hers in front of her. He sat down. "Delphine leaves at 7, he said. "I know. She'll call me from the parking lot at 8:50. Once she's out of the car and inside, I won't hear from her again until she's at the nurse's desk with the order in her hand. That'll be 9:05, 9:08. Naomi will be at the desk. Naomi will not look at her. Naomi will go look up the file on the system and will be, quote, unable to immediately locate the patient Eleanor Miller in the wing the order names. That will buy us 9 minutes. In that 9 minutes, Delphine will—" "Adrian." "Yes. I know the plan. I know you know the plan. So why are you telling me the plan?" He looked down at his coffee. "Because I have nothing else in my head," he said, quiet. "And I don't want to sit at a table at 5 in the morning in silence." She didn't know what to say to that. She had literally never, in her life, heard a man admit a thing like that. Not Marcus. Not her father, before he died. Not any of the men she had worked for, or with, or under. She had not even heard a man in a book admit a thing like that. She sat with it. She let it settle. She reached across the table and she put her hand on the back of his hand for about 2 seconds, very lightly, the first time she had touched him since the first night, and she took her hand back. "Okay," she said. "Then tell me the plan." He told her the plan. He told her the plan for 40 minutes, at 5 in the morning, over 2 cups of coffee that got cold in front of them. And she listened to the plan like she was memorizing music, and she asked 3 questions. And each of her 3 questions made him stop and look at her and say, "That is a good question," in a voice that told her he had not thought of the thing her question was pointing at, and he fixed 2 of the 3 before Delphine even arrived for her final briefing. Delphine came through the back door at 6:15. She was in a navy suit today, not charcoal. She carried the same beat-up briefcase. Her hair was still silver, still cropped, but she'd put on a thin gold chain that morning, and Lena saw her touch it at the throat twice during the briefing. Small reassurance touches. A tell Lena tucked away. Everyone had tells. Adrian's was the not drinking. Mara's was the way she set down plates. You could tell how worried she was by the force of the set. Delphine touched her throat. Jules came at 6:30. Tomas came in from the guest house at 6:45 and handed Adrian a set of car keys without a word and turned around and walked back out, because Tomas was a man of about 4 words a day, and he had already used 2 of them on Morning Boss. At 7 exactly, Delphine stood up, set her coffee cup in the sink, looked around the kitchen, said, "All right," and walked out the back door. Adrian walked her to the car. Lena watched them through the kitchen window. Adrian said something. Delphine nodded. Adrian put his hand on the roof of her car for a moment. Delphine said something back and laughed, a sharp, surprised laugh, and then got in and drove away. Adrian came back in. "She told me to stop worrying or I'd ruin my face," he said, not quite smiling. "She said I'm finally starting to look my age." "How old are you?" Lena said before she thought. 41. "You don't look 41. "I did 3 days ago." She almost laughed. They waited. The clock on the kitchen wall moved the way clocks move when you are waiting on them. 7:30, 7:40. Mara, who had made breakfast, sat with them at the table but didn't eat. Jules was on her phone, refreshing something, refreshing something, refreshing something. Adrian had the laptop open in front of him with the security feed from the front gate in one window and a second window showing nothing but a blinking cursor. He had a third window Lena couldn't see. Every few minutes he closed that one and opened it again. At 8:20, Delphine's number came up on his phone. He put it on speaker. "I'm in the lot," Delphine said. Her voice was calm, which somehow made it sharper. "The marshal is here. His name is Henley. He is competent. He has done this before, twice, for me. He will not speak unless he has to. I'm going in 4 minutes. Naomi, are you on the line?" "I'm here," Naomi said. Her voice came from somewhere else, a hall, a stairwell, a closet. "I'm on the east corridor. I'm about to cross to the desk. Judge Garrison's order is at the desk in the overnight tray. My shift manager is in a meeting until 9:15. Her second is a woman named Paula, who is, shall we say, not curious." "Good." "Delphine." "Yes." "Don't hurt anyone." "I never do." "I know. I'm saying it anyway. It's what I'm saying instead of anything else." "I understand." Delphine hung up. 8:44, 8:50, 8:52. Adrian did not get up. Adrian did not pace. Adrian sat in a chair and watched two windows on a laptop and drank, finally, actual coffee, 2 long swallows, like a man remembering to take in fuel because a part of his brain had started running a stopwatch and would not stop. At 8:56, Naomi's voice came through, quieter now. "Order's in her hand. She's walking in. I'm going to go get very slowly lost in the medication log for the next 9 minutes." "Good," Adrian said into the mic. "Adrian?" "Yes." "I've been wanting to say something to you for 4 years and have not said it." "Say it later. Don't say it now." "Later might not happen." "Naomi." "Say it later." A pause. "All right," Naomi said, soft. "Later. Going dark." The line went silent. 8:58. 9 o'clock. 9:02. 9:06. At 9:09, the line came back. This time it was just breathing. For about 4 seconds, it was only breathing. Then Delphine's voice, close to the mic, low. "I have her." Adrian closed his eyes for a second, just long enough that Lena saw the muscle in his jaw release. "Where are you?" "We are walking. I'm going to hand the phone to Henley because I need both my hands." "Henley." "Here." "Henley." "We're at the east door, Henley said. His voice was older, gravelly, unhurried. "We are going to go through it because the east door opens directly onto the service drive, and we do not have to pass the main reception. We have clearance through the service drive until 9:30. We will be on the service drive by 9:12, in the vehicle by 9:14. I have a driver. The patient is—" He hesitated. "The patient is ambulatory. The patient is with me. I have her hand. She is doing fine." Henley. "Yes. Stay on the line until you're in the car." "Copy." They stayed on the line. Lena could hear faintly the sound of a door being pushed open. A wind. Delphine's voice in the background, low and steady, saying, "Right here, honey. Just right over here. We're just walking. Just walking. That's good. That's good." Another door. Footsteps. Another door. A car door opening. Then Delphine's voice again, closer, talking to Nora, not to the line. "I'm going to sit next to you. You don't have to talk. You don't have to do anything. I'm going to put my coat on your lap because it's warm. Is that okay?" You can nod. You don't have to. "Okay. Good. Good." Henley, into the phone. "We are in the vehicle. Driver is pulling out now. We are clear." Adrian exhaled. A long exhale. A full one. The kind a man takes when a thing has not gone wrong in the exact way he had been most afraid of it going wrong. "Bring her home," he said. "Copy." The line went dead. Lena realized, somewhere in the middle of that exhale, that she had been holding her own breath in a way she hadn't held it since the gate. She let it out, all at once. Her ribs twinged. She put a hand on her side and laughed a little, from surprise at the pain, and then she was crying, just a little, and Mara had a hand on her shoulder without having moved, somehow, because Mara had the reflexes of a woman who had been doing this for a long time. And Jules was looking at Adrian with an expression Lena had not seen on her face before, something unguarded, a kind of relief that looked a lot like grief. 40 minutes, Adrian said. His voice was hoarse. They'll be here in 40 minutes. They were here in 43. The black car came up the drive slow. Tomas opened the gate. The car crunched up the white stone with all 4 windows up and the light inside dimmed, the way a car carries something sleeping. It stopped at the front steps. Delphine got out of the back first, and Henley got out of the front passenger seat, and the driver, a man Lena had never seen before, broad-shouldered, a trimmed gray beard, kind eyes, got out of the driver's seat and came around to the far side and opened the passenger door. Nora Avery came out slowly. She was smaller than Lena had expected. That was the first thing. She was 5'2", 5'3", in a pair of cheap canvas shoes and a cotton dress, a shade of blue that did not belong to her. Her hair was to her shoulders, and it was gray. Not gray-streaked the way Mara's was. Fully gray. In 4 years. At 30 years old. Her face was somehow both young and ruined. Her eyes were open and present in a way Lena would not have expected. Naomi had told them, on Sunday night, that the last round of dosage reductions had started 10 days ago under the cover of, quote, a very sloppy pharmacy audit, which, between us, was mine, and that Nora's head would be clearer than it had been in years by the morning of the move. But even so, there were 4 years in her face that had not come out of her face. Lena had to look away for a second. Adrian went down the steps to her first. He didn't speak. He stopped 3 feet from her. He held up his own hands, empty, palms out, the same gesture Delphine had used in the library. Nora looked at the hands. She looked at his face. She did not flinch. She did not lean forward. She did very slowly lift her own chin and meet his eyes, and her mouth moved in a way that, Lena realized afterward, had been a smile trying to rebuild itself from the foundation up. "I'm Adrian," he said. "I know," she said. Her voice was dry and small, but it was in there, a voice, not a whisper. "Naomi told you." "Naomi told me." She tried for something. Her throat caught. She tried again. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I had a conversation." "Take your time." I would like to go inside." "Of course." She walked up the steps on her own. She wouldn't take his arm. She wouldn't take Delphine's either. She walked in the front door of the house on Ridgemont Hill and stopped, 2 steps in, and looked around. At the foyer, with its old hardwood floor. At the stairs. At Mara at the bottom of the stairs, hands folded, face crumpling very carefully and not allowing itself to. At Jules, in the study doorway, not coming closer yet. At Lena. Nora looked at Lena. She looked at her for a long time. "You're her," she said, finally. You're the one Naomi said, the one who got out. A week ago. The one they all... 10 days ago, Lena said. Her voice was not steady. "It was 10 days ago." "Yes, I'm Lena. I'm so glad to meet you. I've been hearing about you. I've been hearing about you too. I've been listening to them talk about you a little bit. The bad ones. Naomi brought me..." Nora paused. Her hand went to her own mouth for a second, not in horror, just to help her remember a word. "Naomi brought me newspapers. A few of them. I saw a picture of you in one of them. From a charity thing a long time ago. And Naomi said... She said this is the one who got out. I held that paper under my pillow for 4 nights." Lena did not know what to do with that. She did instead the thing her body decided to do. She crossed the foyer in 3 steps, and she stopped an arm's length from Nora, and Nora, without being asked, lifted her own arms a little, in a gesture so small and so shy it nearly broke Lena's heart, and Lena stepped in carefully and put her arms around Nora, carefully, not tight, and Nora, after a small held breath, put her arms back, And they stood in the foyer like that for, Lena guessed later, about 30 seconds. And it was the first hug Nora Avery had had in 4 years that was not administered to her by a member of medical staff. And it was the first hug Lena Cross had given willingly in 2 years. And both of them cried into each other's shoulders without making any sound at all, which was, for both of them, a habit that was going to take a long time to unlearn. Mara, at the stairs, finally let her face do the thing it had been trying not to. The house was, for about 4 minutes, quiet. Just people breathing. Then Adrian, gently, from the doorway, "Let's get her off her feet." They got Nora off her feet. They got her into the same green leather couch in the study that Lena had first been laid on, and Mara brought her soup. The only thing Naomi had told them to have ready, a thin, clear broth. Her stomach had not had solid food in any real amount in months. And Nora took the bowl in both hands and looked at it and did not eat for a long time. She just held it and smelled the steam and closed her eyes for a while. When she finally did start to eat, she ate very slowly. A sip, a pause, a sip. Delphine sat on the floor beside her on a cushion, not crowding, and at some point Delphine's hand went up and brushed, with the back of 2 fingers, a strand of Nora's gray hair off her forehead, and Nora turned her face toward the hand for a half a second before the hand moved away, and Delphine's mouth did a complicated thing, and Lena had to leave the room for a minute. She stood in the hall and pressed her palms flat against the wall and breathed for a full minute. Adrian came out after her. He didn't stand close. He stood in the study doorway, with the hallway between them. "She's going to be okay," Lena said, to the wall. "She's going to be something," he said. "I don't know if it's okay yet, but she's going to be something that wouldn't have existed if we hadn't done this." "Yes." "Lena." "Yes." "Thank you. For seeing her face before you said yes. For saying yes anyway." She turned her head against the wall and looked at him. "Adrian," she said, "if you thank me one more time, I'm going to throw something at you." He almost smiled. "Noted," he said. By 4 that afternoon, as Adrian had predicted, Beckwith knew. They knew he knew, because the phone started to ring. Adrian had 3 phones. 2 of them were things other people had numbers for. The third was a thing only 6 people on Earth had the number for, and one of those people was Delphine, and one of those people was Naomi. And when the third phone rang that afternoon at 4:08, and the screen showed a number none of the 6 would have shown, Adrian looked at it for about 2 seconds, and then he answered it. Voss. He put it on speaker only because Lena was in the room, and he did not want later for there to be any question about what had been said. "Adrian!" The voice on the other end was calm in a way Lena recognized, calm the way Marcus was calm when the cameras were off. "It's been a long time. Theodore, you have something of mine." "Do I?" "A woman." "Yes. A woman who has been, let's say, a long-term guest in a facility I have financially supported for the last 4 years. My understanding is that a court order was executed this morning that I was not informed of and that no process was served on me for. That is unusual, Adrian. That is unusual enough that I am making a phone call rather than taking it up with the court." "What are you taking up with me?" "I am asking you what exactly you think you are doing. Helping a private citizen leave a facility she was not lawfully retained in, at the order of a judge with a marshal present. I would think, as a man with 2 hotels and a great deal of legal counsel, you would be familiar with the mechanism." "Adrian." "Theodore." "I am asking you, old friend. We are not old friends. Adrian, I am asking you, man to man. Return her." "She isn't a car." "I didn't say she was a car. I said return her." "You're using the wrong verb, Theodore. There is no verb there that works. She's not anywhere. She's in a private home. She's with a lawyer. She's on the way, in the next week, to a debrief with the state, after which she will, I assume, make her own choices about where she would like to go and what she would like to do. None of those choices are going to be coordinated through you. I want to be clear. You are not being informed of anything as a courtesy. I am answering this call as a courtesy. You understand the distinction." Mats, a silence. "You think you are going to do something at the gala," Beckwith said finally. "Theodore, I think a great many things. Let me save you the trouble. There are people at the gala who would who, if something at the gala were to happen, would not be the people you think they are going to be. I am not speaking for myself. I am speaking for others. Marcus, I'm sure you've spoken to. Marcus is a child. Lenz is a child. Cole, a small, sharp breath, a suppressed something. Cole is not a child. You are going into a room that has Cole in it. Has it occurred to you that a man in my position, in my and Cole's position, does not go to a room without knowing, in advance, every detail of every plan in every head of every person who intends to be there that night? Has that occurred to you? Theodore, I'll tell you what's occurred to me. Yes. It's occurred to me that you would not be calling me from a number you cleaned on a Wednesday afternoon, on a phone you do not normally use, with a voice you are trying very hard to keep from shaking, if you knew every detail of every plan in every head of every person who intends to be there that night. The silence that followed lasted about 9 seconds. I'm going to hang up now, Beckwith said. Okay. Adrian. Yes, you will not walk away from this. Theodore, you really should not have gone after the nurse's daughter. A pause. Beckwith did not say anything. He did not ask what Adrian meant. He did not pretend he didn't know. He just went silent for about half a second, which was, Lena realized afterward, half a second too long. And then the line clicked dead. Adrian set the phone down on the table carefully. He looked at it for a moment like a man looking at a spider he had been trying to photograph. Then he said, without looking up, "He's scared. I wanted to be sure." "You weren't sure, not completely. Now I am." He turned to her. "Lena, 2 things. First thing, he just confirmed, on a call I am recording, that he knew Nora was being held. He said, long-term guest. He said, financially supported. Those 2 phrases, in the mouth of a man with his name on the foundation that funds that facility, they're a great deal. That recording goes to Delphine tonight. Delphine goes to the Attorney General in the morning. We are 48 hours ahead of where I thought we would be by Friday. And the second thing is that he mentioned Cole. Out loud. On the phone. He didn't mean to, he was improvising. He said, quote, "There are people at the gala who would not be the people you think they are going to be." And he specifically named Cole. He was telling me, because he is, in a certain kind of way, a coward, that Cole is coordinating the security of the gala, which I had suspected, which I could not prove. He just proved it. That is something I needed to know before Saturday. I now know it. Why does Cole running security matter? Because Cole has been commissioner for 6 years. And for 6 years, a specific small unit of plainclothes officers has, at public events, been, what shall I say, operationally assigned in ways that don't always appear on the duty roster. Cole puts his people where he wants them. At the gala, his people will be positioned based on what Cole knows. They will be watching the people Cole tells them to watch. They will not be watching the people Cole does not tell them to watch. That is useful information. I know now who in a specific way will not be watched. He smiled, very small, very cold. "It's us," he said. "They are going to be watching for us. They are not going to be watching for the people they do not know are ours. That is a very, very workable problem." She did not for a second fully understand. Then she did. Then she sat down on the arm of a chair. "Adrian." "Yes." "There are people at the gala who are ours. Who they don't know are ours." "Yes." "How many?" He looked at her steadily. 6, he said, counting the person who will be at the soundboard, counting Jules, counting a man named Hal Westerbrook, who is in the Arcanum Bay PD and has been, since 2 a.m. last Saturday, assisting in this investigation with the personal knowledge and written authorization of the Attorney General of this state, who was briefed on Monday by Delphine in a back room of a Thai restaurant on 12th Street. Counting Detective Reyes, who did the right thing, by the way, and whose daughter is going to have a very good life. Counting one other person I'm not going to tell you about until the night of, because we agreed she does not want to be told about in advance, and I respect that. 6 people, plus you, plus me. 8 against several hundred guests, most of whom are innocent. 40 plus of Cole's people in uniform or plain clothes who think they are providing security. 4 men in evening wear, who think the evening is going to end with their pictures in the society pages. A building with 3 functional exits and 7 that will appear to be functional and are not. A sound system that is going to cooperate with us at one specific point in the evening for a specific number of seconds and then cooperate with the building for the rest of the night. A screen in the ballroom that will, at a specific moment, stop showing what it is supposed to be showing. A court order that will be signed 30 minutes before you walk in and will not take effect until I nod. You and me. A dress. A chandelier that will, if I have my way, stay up. If you have your way. If I don't have my way, Lena, we have bigger problems than the chandelier. He said it with the straight face of a man who had been, for 4 years, preparing for a Saturday night. She said quiet. Adrian, Saturday is in 3 days. I know. Nora is not going to the gala. Nora does not need to be anywhere near the gala. Nora will be here, in this house, with Mara. There will be 2 men in the orchard and 2 men in the front drive, and 1 man who looks like nothing in particular standing on the sidewalk of the private road in a jacket that makes him look like he is waiting for an Uber. Those 4 men are people I would bet my life on. They are, in point of fact, currently betting their lives on my payroll. They will be here. Nora will be fine. I would not be going to the gala if I did not know, absolutely, that Nora would be fine here. Do you understand? I understand. Okay. Adrian. Yes. When I walk in with the dress. Yes. What happens first? He looked at her. He sat down opposite her, the way he had sat in the kitchen that first morning. A man setting a thing on a table and letting her look at it. When you walk in, he said, you will be walking in about 8 minutes after Marcus arrives. You will be at the top of the main staircase. The main staircase at the Hartwell is a wide, curved marble stair under a 24-foot ceiling. You will take off the coat you are wearing on the staircase, not at the door. You will hand the coat to a coat check attendant who is one of our 6. His name is David. He will take the coat and he will, after you start down the stairs, signal the soundboard. What will I do on the stairs? You will walk down the stairs. That's all. That is the whole job. You will walk down the stairs in that dress at that speed, and you will let people see you. The people you want to see you will see you. Specifically, Marcus will see you. Specifically, Marcus is going to be at the base of the stairs, approximately, at the time you reach the 3rd step from the bottom, because he is going to have been told by someone he trusts who is one of ours, and he doesn't know it, that a young woman he needs to meet is going to be introduced to him at the base of the stairs, and the young woman he needs to meet is me, is you. Oh. At the moment Marcus sees you, 3 things will happen. 1, the lights in the ballroom will not change, but the audio will. The audio will be taken off the string quartet and put onto a pre-recorded track for exactly 190 seconds. 2, the screens. There are 4 screens around the ballroom. They are going to be used later in the evening for a video about the foundation. The screens will come on, all 4 at once, at the moment the audio switches. On those screens will be, in this order, Marcus's own face, from a recording made 8 months ago at a dinner I am not going to describe to you tonight, in which Marcus says, Adrian, yes. Is it him talking about me? A pause. It is him talking about a woman he was planning to, quote, quiet. Was it me? Yes. You have that. We have that. Naomi had access, through channels I am not going to describe tonight either, to a dinner that took place at a restaurant Beckwith owns, in a private room he believed to be, quote, clean. It was not clean. It had not been clean for 11 months. That is a thing I am quite proud of, honestly. That recording is on the foundation screens for the first 80 seconds. Then, go on. Then, the screens show the paperwork, Nora's medication log, the signature of the doctor who lost his license, Beckwith's donations to the facility, timestamps, amounts, 7 names of other women who are or were in similar facilities, under similar circumstances, under similar arrangements. That is 60 seconds. Then, and the last 50. The last 50 seconds is you, on the staircase, still walking down the staircase, because you will still, at that point, be walking down the staircase. And then at the bottom of the staircase, Marcus will be, as I said, standing there. And at the bottom of the staircase, The people who are going to arrest Marcus, who are already in the ballroom, who have been there for 2 hours, in evening wear, not drinking, those people will arrest Marcus, quietly, in front of 300 people, with the screen still showing what they are showing. And you will stand at the base of the stairs, and you will, if you choose, say one thing to him. One sentence. Of your choice. You don't have to. If you don't want to, you walk past him. If you do, you say it, and you say it loud enough for the man at the soundboard to hear it and put it on the speakers. That is your choice. You don't have to decide until you are on the stairs. She did not say anything for a long time. And the other three, she said finally, Lenz and Beckwith and Cole. Yes, Lenz is going to be on his way to the bathroom when the screens change. He is going to get as far as the hallway outside the ballroom. In that hallway, he will be met by 3 people, one of whom is Hal Westerbrook. Lenz is not going to make a scene. Lenz is a coward. He will be in a car by the time the paperwork sequence is fully on the screens. Beckwith is in the ballroom. He will try to leave through the kitchen. The kitchen exit will be staffed at that moment by 2 of Cole's men, who will, because of Cole, believe they are there to keep people out. They will, because of what they are going to see on their radios at that moment, pivot to keeping Beckwith in. That pivot is not guaranteed. I want you to know that. I have a 60% confidence in those 2 men, not more. If they don't pivot, Beckwith leaves through the kitchen, and then he is a different problem, but he is not a tonight problem. Tonight, I am okay with not catching Beckwith tonight. I'm okay with a Thursday. And Cole? Cole is the one that will happen slowest. Cole is at the head table. Cole is going to understand what is happening about 4 seconds before the room does. Because Cole is the only person in the room who can read what the screens are going to show in the first frame. Cole is going to stand up very calmly, and he is going to try to walk out the front. In the front vestibule, there is going to be a woman waiting for him whom I have not yet told you about, whom I am not going to tell you about tonight, who is, essentially, Cole's problem. That is her job. I am not worried about Cole. I am worried a little about Beckwith. I am not worried about Marcus. Why not? Because Marcus, Adrian said, and for the first time all day his face did a thing she had not seen it do. A small, private, contemptuous thing, a thing that was not quite a smile, around the corner of his mouth. Marcus is going to look at you on the staircase, and Marcus is going to, for the first time in his life, stop thinking. I have watched Marcus Hale on television for 6 years. He is a man whose entire apparatus runs on the assumption that he knows what room he is in. Take that apparatus offline for 9 seconds, and Marcus is, functionally, a man standing at the bottom of a staircase in a $3,000 suit, being very confused at a chandelier. He will not move. Hal will put a hand on his arm. Marcus will not fight. Marcus has never in his life had to fight an actual man. He has hit women. He has intimidated paralegals. He has never been touched by a man who was not smiling at him. Hal will not be smiling. And I say my sentence, if you want to. Adrian. Yes. I've been trying to decide what the sentence would be for a day. I can't find one. Everything I come up with sounds like a movie. I don't want it to sound like a movie. Then don't decide tonight. Okay? Decide on the stairs. Or don't. I mean that. If you don't say anything, that is also a sentence. It is possibly the better sentence. It is, I will admit, what I would do. But I am not you. You are the one who has to live with having walked past him or not walked past him. So you decide on the stairs. Okay? Okay? She was very quiet. Then she said, Adrian. Yes. What if I fall? You won't fall. What if I do? Lena, listen to me. You ran 3 miles in that dress in a storm, barefoot, with 2 cars behind you, and you didn't fall. You are not going to fall walking down a staircase in flat shoes because, you will note, the dress is long enough that no one will be able to see your shoes, and we are not putting you in heels. We are putting you in flats. You will glide. You will not fall. Flats. Flats. You thought of that. I thought of that 3 days ago. I thought of most of this 3 days ago. I am, if I am being honest with you, a somewhat obsessive person. She laughed. It was a whole laugh this time, not a half. She put her face in her hands and she laughed for about 4 seconds, and then she stopped laughing, and she looked up at him and she said, "Thank you." I'm not thanking you for the plan." He stopped. "I'm thanking you for the flats," she said. He looked at her for a long moment. And then, finally, for the first time in the 15 days she had known him, Adrian Voss's mouth moved all the way into a real smile. Not the half smile, not the not quite, a real one. It changed his whole face. It made him, Lena realized, about 10 years younger. It made her understand for the first time in a long time why Mara had agreed to come work for this strange, closed-off man 6 years ago. He did not, however, let the smile stay long. "You should sleep," he said. "Nora is upstairs. Mara is with her. We have 3 days. Saturday night is not the hard part, Lena. The hard part was Wednesday morning at 9:06. The hard part was you deciding last week that you were going to do this. Saturday is a formality. Saturday is theater. We have already won. They just don't know it yet. We've already won. Yes. Adrian. Yes. I don't feel like we've won. I know you don't. You're not going to for a while. Winning this is going to feel, for at least a year, like surviving this. That's not the same thing, but it will eventually become the same thing. You have my word, your word. Yes. How much is your word worth?" He looked at her, and his mouth did the smaller smile again, but it was warmer this time. "Ask Nora," he said. And she understood. She stood up. She walked over to where he was sitting. She did not sit. She put her hand very lightly on his shoulder for about 2 seconds, the longest she had touched him in 15 days, and she said soft, "Good night, Adrian." "Good night, Lena." She went upstairs. She passed Nora's door. It was ajar. She saw Mara sitting in the chair by the window, and Nora asleep on top of the covers in a sweater 2 sizes too big for her that Mara must have found in a closet somewhere, and a small lamp on low, and a book open in Mara's lap that Mara was not reading. Mara looked up. Mara smiled at her. Mara mouthed, "Go to bed, honey." Lena went to bed. She did not sleep right away. She lay in the dark of her own room, in the house that was no longer someone else's, and she thought about a staircase she had not yet climbed, and a sentence she had not yet decided, and a dress that was hanging in a closet across the city that she had not yet put on, and she thought for a long time about the word theater. Adrian had said theater. She had been, she realized, for 2 years, a prop. Marcus's prop. A prop in a show that had been playing every night in a house on Bellwood Drive with an audience of 1, which had been Marcus, who had laughed at all the right places because he was the director, and nobody had ever told him the prop could look back. On Saturday, she was going to look back. She was going to look back on a staircase in a room with 300 people in it, under a chandelier Adrian had promised her would stay up, and Marcus was going to find out. In the few seconds he had before a man named Hal Westerbrook put a hand on his arm, that the prop had been, all along, a person, and the person had been all along keeping score. She slept. She slept hard. In her sleep, she was on a staircase. She was walking down. She was not afraid. Her feet did not hurt. Somewhere at the bottom, a man was standing, and a room was watching, and a voice was going to speak, and the voice would not be his. For the first time in 2 years, it was going to be hers. Saturday morning came up clean. No rain this time. Just a hard white winter sun working its way across the garden, hitting the frost on the grass and making the whole back lawn look, for about 10 minutes, like a photograph somebody had overexposed on purpose. Lena watched it from the window of her room with her forehead against the glass. She had been awake since 4. She had stopped pretending to sleep at 5:30. At 6, she had put on the thick socks Mara had left her and walked herself, very slowly, through the hall, past Nora's door. Still ajar. Mara still in the chair, both of them asleep now. Mara's head tipped back, Nora on her side, one hand tucked under her cheek the way a child sleeps, and she had stood at the top of the stairs and looked down at the foyer and thought, "This is the last morning, this is the shape of my life." She didn't know yet what shape her life was going to be by Sunday. That was the thing nobody tells you she'd come to understand about leaving a thing. They tell you about the leaving. They don't tell you about the morning after. They don't tell you that you wake up and the man is not in your bed, and that's fine, that's good, but neither is anyone else. and your body, which has for 2 years been calibrated to the footsteps of one specific human being, doesn't know what to do with a house that is quiet. Her body kept waiting for the sound of keys in a door. It kept listening for a car. It kept bracing. She had spent 10 days in the Voss house, and her body had not yet understood that no car was coming up that drive that it needed to brace for. Her body thought the bracing was her. Her body thought she would disappear if she stopped bracing. She was going to have to teach her body, over months, maybe years, that she was not the bracing. She was the person underneath it. She had always been the person underneath it. She just hadn't been introduced to that person in a long time. Saturday, she understood, was not the day she got introduced. Saturday was just the day she stopped running. The dress arrived at 11. Adrian had sent a woman for it, a small, compact woman in her 50s in a camel coat who looked, at first glance, like a tax accountant and was, Lena learned later, a former stage manager at a regional theater in the Pacific Northwest who had worked for 3 years on a touring production with a man who was later convicted and who had, since, done this kind of quiet work for Adrian 6 times. The woman's name was Penny. Penny had gone to the house on Bellwood Drive at 9:30 in the morning, a time, she said matter-of-factly, at which Marcus Hale was scheduled to be at a pre-gala brunch downtown, a time which had been confirmed by 3 separate channels. Penny had rung the bell. A housekeeper Lena had known for 18 months, Maribel, who always slipped Lena a peppermint when Marcus wasn't looking, had opened the door. Penny had said in a neutral, official voice, "I'm from the dry cleaner, Mr. Hale asked that Ms. Cross's dress for tonight be pressed on premises." Maribel had looked at Penny for about 2 seconds. Maribel had said, "I'll get it for you." Maribel had not asked for paperwork. Maribel had gone upstairs and come down with the garment bag and put it in Penny's arms and looked her in the eye and said very low, "Tell her I said hello. Tell her I'm glad." Penny had not had to ask who her was. Penny had nodded. Maribel had closed the door. Penny told Lena this at the kitchen table, with the garment bag hanging on the back of a chair, in the tone of a person giving a weather report. Lena covered her face with her hands and cried a little. "She said hello," Lena said, muffled, into her hands. "She said hello," Penny confirmed. 18 months. 18 months. I thought she was his." "Nobody is anybody's, honey," Penny said, in a voice that did not sound like it belonged to her coat. "You just don't always know who you are until somebody gives you a chance to find out." Lena took her hands down. She looked at Penny. Penny was already standing up, already moving on, already taking her coat off to help with the dress, already putting the kettle on because Mara was upstairs with Nora, and the kettle was, in this house, something that a person did when the silence asked for it. They did not unbag the dress until 1. Delphine was in the kitchen by then. Jules had been in and out twice. Once with a canvas bag full of small electronics she and Adrian had disappeared into the study with for 40 minutes and then come out of looking satisfied. Naomi had come at noon and sat with Nora upstairs for an hour. And Nora had eaten toast with butter and had, Mara reported coming down the stairs, made a joke, an actual joke. Small, not funny, but a thing meant to make Mara smile. And Mara had smiled so hard she'd had to leave the room. Tomas had been in the back garden for most of the morning doing nothing in particular that Lena could see, and 4 men she did not know had arrived by the back gate in 2 unmarked cars at 11:30 and had since been in 3 different places on the property, each of them looking in a way that was very hard to describe, like they were not looking at anything. And if you looked at them, they would have been able to tell you what color your socks were without turning their heads. Nora came downstairs at 1:15. She came down on her own. She was wearing one of Mara's old sweaters and a pair of soft corduroy pants that had probably also been Mara's. And she walked without help the length of the stairs, and she came into the kitchen and she stopped in the doorway and she looked at the garment bag on the back of the chair. "Is that the dress?" Nora said. "That's the dress," Lena said. "Can I see it?" "You want to see it?" "Please." Lena unzipped the garment bag. She did it slowly. The bag parted. The silk spilled out into her hands the way the silk had spilled when she'd tried it on 3 months ago, in a boutique on Miller Street, with Marcus behind her and a tailor with pins in her mouth. A pale, pale blue. So pale it was almost gray. The neckline was high in the front, low in the back. The waist was structured. The skirt was long, long enough to cover anything, long enough, she had finally realized on Wednesday night, to hide a pair of flats. Marcus had chosen the dress because he liked the neckline. He had liked the neckline because it was the kind of neckline that looked demure from the front, and when she turned her back, revealed. She remembered him smiling about that in the mirror. Baby. Oh, baby, look at you. She remembered the tailor's eyes meeting hers in the mirror and going immediately to the floor. Nora looked at the dress for a long time. Then she said, soft, "It's a beautiful dress." "It's going to be a beautiful dress tonight," Lena said, for the first time. Nora nodded. She reached out with one hand and touched the hem. Her fingers had, Lena noticed, the tremor of a person coming off certain kinds of medication. The tremor would go away. Naomi had said it would. Nora's fingers rested on the hem for about 3 seconds. Lena. Yes. I'm not going to be there. I know. I want to be there. Nora. I know I can't be. I'm just saying it out loud. I want to be there. I want to be in the room when it happens. I've been imagining a room for 4 years. Whenever I would get scared, I would imagine a room. I didn't know what the room was for, I just imagined it. The room had a lot of people in it, and the lights went out for a second, and when the lights came back on, all the men I was afraid of were not afraid exactly, because they don't do afraid the way we do afraid. But they were small. They were small for the first time. I imagined that room for 4 years, and tonight someone is going to build it, and I'm not going to be in it. Nora, it's okay. I'm just telling you. Nora, the reason you're not in it is because you being in it is what would let them win. If you were there, they would be looking for you. They wouldn't be looking at the screens. We need them looking at the screens. We need the whole room looking at the screens. You being safe up here is what lets the rest of the room be safe down there. You are the whole reason the rest of it works. I know. Do you? I know, Lena. I know. I just wanted to touch the dress. That's all. Go put on the dress. Walk down your staircase. Tell them my name if you want. Don't tell them my name if you don't. I trust you. I trust you, which is a thing I have not been able to say about a human being in 4 years, and I want you to know how much that word weighs coming out of my mouth right now. I know? Go. Lena went. She went upstairs with Penny behind her, with Delphine following 2 minutes later, with Mara coming up last with the small bag of things Mara had selected yesterday. A pair of earrings that had been Mara's mother's, a thin silver cuff bracelet that had been Mara's own for 20 years. A small bottle of perfume that was not sweet, that was in fact cold, clean, a little mossy, a perfume that did not smell like a woman trying to be pleasing. You are not going to be pleasing tonight, honey, Mara said, uncapping it. You are going to be visible. That is a different thing entirely. Lena put the perfume on. She did not look in the mirror during any of the getting ready. That had been Penny's instruction. Don't look until we're done. You have spent 2 years being looked at in a mirror by someone who is cataloging you. We are not going to catalog you. We are going to finish the job, and then you are going to look. So Lena sat in the small chair in the guest room, and Penny did her hair, pinned up, no curls, no softening, a clean architectural sweep that lifted her neck. And Delphine, who had apparently done makeup for stage in a previous life Lena had not known about, did a face on her that was almost no face at all. No red lip, no smoky eye, a little clean shadow, a clean line at the lash, a bare bitten kind of mouth. It was a face that said from across a ballroom, I did not dress for you. It was the exact opposite of the face Marcus had, for 2 years, liked her to wear. She did not look. They zipped her into the dress. Penny buttoned the small row at the back of the neck. Mara slid the cuff onto her wrist. Delphine clipped the earrings. Mara put the flats on her feet, one at a time, and tied nothing, because flats have no laces. Then Penny, behind her, said, Okay. She turned Lena to face the full-length mirror on the back of the closet door. Lena looked. For about 10 seconds she did not recognize the person in the glass. Then she did. Then she had to sit down. Oh, she said. Yes, Penny said, quiet. Oh, yes, that's me. Yes. I haven't seen myself in, I don't remember the last time I know, honey. She put her hand over her mouth. She did not this time cry. She made instead a small sound that was neither a laugh nor a sob, a sound she had not made before, a sound that had been waiting in her throat for probably 2 years. It came out. Her shoulders shook once. Then she put her hand down, and she stood up, and she looked at the woman in the mirror. A woman in a pale blue silk dress with a clean, high neckline and a low back, and a face that was her own face, no one else's, for the first time in a very long time, and she said to the woman in the mirror, very quiet, "Hi." The woman in the mirror said it back. Lena turned away from the mirror. "Let's go," she said. Adrian was at the bottom of the stairs. He was in a black tuxedo that had been tailored maybe 8 years ago and had, over those 8 years, come to fit him the way a tool comes to fit a hand. No statement. No flash. A black bow tie tied by himself, imperfectly, a fraction of a degree off level, which was, she knew now because she had come to know him, deliberate. A man with a perfectly tied bow tie was a man who wanted to be looked at. A man with a slightly off bow tie was a man who had something else on his mind. He stood with his hands clasped loosely in front of him, the way he always stood. And when she came down the stairs, he didn't move, he didn't react, he didn't perform a thing. He looked at her. He looked at her the way he had looked at her on the porch the first night, top of her head to her feet, once, quickly. Not a sweep, a read, a data intake. And then, when he was done reading, his eyes came back up to her face and stayed there. And for about a second, maybe 2, something in his expression did a thing she had not seen it do yet. Not a smile, not a softening, something smaller and harder. And then it was gone. And he said, in his normal voice, "You look like somebody they will not be able to look away from." "Good. You look like somebody I would not cross." "Good. You look like Lena cross." That was the whole idea. "Yes. Is it time?" "It's time." They walked out the front door. Tomas had brought a car around. Not the black town car Adrian used sometimes. A deep green sedan, older, clean, unremarkable, the kind of car you do not remember driving behind. He held the back door. Lena got in. Adrian got in on the other side. Delphine was in the front passenger seat. Jules was in another car, Lena was told, already at the venue, already inside. The car started. The gate opened. They went down the hill. Lena watched the hill fall away through the back window. She watched the iron gate she had thrown herself at 15 days ago. She watched it swing shut behind them. "Adrian." "Yes." "If this doesn't, don't." "If it doesn't." "Lena, don't. Not in the car. Not tonight. We do not talk. In the car on the way to the thing about what happens if the thing doesn't work. That is a rule I have. It is not a superstition. It is a discipline. If I start planning for failure in the car, my planning is worse. I have already, in my head, planned for every failure that I can plan for. If one of them happens, I will know what to do. If I list them to you now, I will introduce a new one by accident, because that is what lists do. So we don't list them. We talk about something else. Tell me. Tell me something unimportant. Something unimportant. Yes. I can't think of anything unimportant. The house, Adrian said, has a dog. What? I have not mentioned it because she has been with Tomas all week at the cottage. Her name is Bia. She is an elderly collie mix. She does not come into the main house because she has for 9 years preferred the cottage, where she gets, it must be said, spoiled rotten. I have not seen her in 4 days because she has been, quote, supervising the perimeter. That is Tomas's phrase. The dog is not supervising anything. The dog is sleeping on a couch and occasionally looking out a window. I am telling you about the dog because she is the only thing in my life I can discuss without it containing a plot point. She has a small white mark on her chest that looks, if you squint, like the letter J. We don't know why. Nobody we got her from knew why. She likes Adrian. Yes. Thank you. I have a lot of things to say about this dog. Keep going. He kept going. He talked about the dog for the entire drive to the Hartwell Hotel. He talked about what the dog ate. He talked about the time the dog, in the 3rd year he'd owned her, had eaten an entire tray of Tomas's Christmas cookies and been fine. He talked about how the dog, after a thunderstorm, would sit at a specific window in the cottage and stare at the rain for 20 minutes as if she were taking it personally. He was still talking about the dog when they pulled up to the service entrance of the Hartwell, and the driver said, "Quiet. We're here, boss." Adrian stopped. He looked at her. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Remember, you are walking down one staircase, that is all. Everything else is everybody else's job." "Everybody else's job?" "Yes. And my sentence is yours, if you want it." "Okay. Okay." They went in the service entrance. The back of the Hartwell was a different world from the front. Concrete floors, white light, a kitchen running flat out, a head chef shouting in French at someone who was not listening in French, a line of waiters in black vests taking trays off a counter in a rhythm so precise it was almost dance. A man Lena had never seen before, tall, black, late 40s, a neat beard, a headset, met them at the service door and said, "Lo, Mr. Voss?" And Adrian said, "Hal," and Hal said, "We're on schedule. Marcus is at bar 2 with the senator, Cole is at table 1, Beckwith is at table 3. Lenz is actually in the bathroom right now. I would not have scripted it. It is funny to me. It will not be funny to him in 9 minutes. Screens. Screens are hot. Sound is hot. I have a man on the soundboard. I have a woman at coat check. I have a man at the top of the main stair. I have 2 men in the ballroom. I have my own people on the doors. I want to be on the doors. Cole's people are where Cole's people are. I am a little more nervous than I would like to be. I am telling you that because I would rather tell you than not tell you. Thank you, Hal." "Ms. Cross." Lena looked at him. "You all right?" Hal said. "No," Lena said. "Good." "Good?" "Good. Means you're paying attention. Come on. Up the back stair. We'll put you where you need to be." They went up the back stair. The Hartwell had, on the east side, a narrow service staircase that came up behind a curtained alcove at the top of the grand staircase. Hal walked them up. Adrian walked behind Lena. Delphine walked behind Adrian. Penny, somewhere, had disappeared. Jules, somewhere, was already in the room. At the top of the service stair, Hal opened a curtain. On the other side of the curtain was the top of the grand staircase, carpeted, 20 feet wide, lit from above by a chandelier the size of a small car. Lena stepped through the curtain. The ballroom, spread out below her, was an ocean. 300 people in black tie and in evening gowns, and in the hush that 300 people in black tie make when they are not yet drunk. The string quartet was in the corner, playing something in 3/4 time. 4 screens around the room, dark. A head table on a low dais, round tables with white cloths, candelabras. A long table at the back with silent auction items. A bar at each end of the room. The whole thing gold lit, warm lit, the kind of light rich people pay for and pretend they don't notice. At the bottom of the staircase, at the base of the curve, a small group of people. Marcus among them. He had his back mostly to the stair. He was talking to a woman in red. A senator, Lena recognized by the line of his neck, a bow tie. His hand on the rim of a whiskey glass. He was laughing. Marcus had a particular laugh at events, a laugh that was slightly louder than the joke. She knew that laugh better than she knew her own face. David, the coat check attendant, appeared at her elbow. He was 25, maybe. A clean face. He did not look at her face. He held out his hand in white gloves for her coat. She was not wearing a coat. He said, very quiet, 3 breaths, Ms. Cross. Take them with me. She took them with him. In, out, in, out, in, out. Now, David said, whenever you're ready. She looked at Adrian. Adrian beside her did not say a word. He tilted his head. 1 degree, almost nothing, the gesture of a man telling a horse at the gate. When you want to. Nothing more. Nothing sentimental. He was leaving the whole thing to her. She stepped forward. She stepped onto the first stair. The string quartet stopped. It did not stop the way a quartet stops. It did not slow and land on a note. It stopped the way a machine stops, suddenly, without grace, because the feed to their pickups had, at that moment, been cut, and a different feed had taken over the room's speakers, and a recording of a man's voice had 4 notes in, replaced the music. Tell me again why we're talking about her, Theo. She's going to be nothing in a week. I've got the paperwork ready. I've got the doctor. She's going to be real easy to put down. She's not like the last one. This one's already broken. I've been breaking her for a year and a half. It's going to be... The voice was Marcus. The voice was Marcus on a tape from 8 months ago, in a private room of a restaurant he thought had been clean, laughing the particular laugh he laughed at events. The room heard him. All 300 faces turned. They turned toward the speakers first, which is what ears do. Then, when ears could not find the source on a stage, they looked at the screens, which were now on, all 4 of them. Blue glow at first, and then his face, Marcus Hale, 40 feet tall, in profile, mid-laugh, the same laugh the room was hearing, the face on the screens not quite matching the audio by a fraction of a second because the tape had been taken from across a table and the angle was not perfect. But the match was close enough that every person in the room understood, in the first full second, that they were watching a man they knew talk about a woman he did not know. They knew he had been hurting. The actual Marcus Hale, at the bottom of the staircase, did not move. He did not at first even turn around. It was as if the information, for about 2 seconds, could not reach his spine. He heard his own voice. He saw, because he looked up at the nearest screen automatically, the way anyone would, his own face. He stopped, mid-laugh. The live laugh, the one in the room, cut off mid-note. The laugh on the recording kept going. You could hear them side by side for about half a second. It was horrifying. The senator next to him stepped back 2 inches. The woman in red stepped back 2 steps. Marcus on the screen kept talking. He was describing, in a voice that was not the voice anyone in the room knew, very specifically how he was going to have her committed. He was using medical language he had learned from a doctor. He was using legal language he had learned from himself. He was using a name in the middle of it. Lena. He said her name twice. The room, as one organism, turned away from the screen to look for Alina. They found her at the top of the staircase. She did not move at first. She let them see her. She let them match the face on the screens to the face at the top of the room. She let 300 people do the math. Their eyes moved between her and the screens and back. Their eyes understood. Somewhere in the middle of that understanding, about 4 seconds in, the tape switched. The paperwork came up. Nora's medication log, Beckwith's donations, dates, amounts, signatures, the names of the other women, 7 names in a white font on a blue screen, 30 feet tall. At table 1, Cole Ashford stood up. He stood up the way a man stands up when he has read the first page of a book and understood the ending. His chair scraped. He did not make eye contact with anyone. He walked, unhurried, toward the main doors. He did not run. He did not call his people on the radio. He was past the point of his people. He was a man walking toward a vestibule in which a woman Lena had still not been told the name of was waiting for him and would be the last person he spoke to as a free man. At table 3, Beckwith was halfway to his feet. He was looking for the kitchen exit. He was already walking. In the ballroom, Lena Cross took the 2nd step, then the 3rd, then the 4th. She did not hurry. She did not smile. She kept her hand lightly on the banister because the banister was there. Her feet did not hurt. The flats did not show. She could hear the audio on the speakers like it was in the back of her own head. Marcus's voice on the tape, still explaining, still laughing. And she could hear the live room, which was doing something now that was not noise and was not silence, that was a kind of collective held breath, the sound 300 people make when they understand together that they are watching a thing that will be the story they tell for the rest of their lives. Marcus finally turned around. He looked up. He saw her. And the thing Adrian had predicted in the kitchen 3 days ago happened exactly the way Adrian had predicted it. Marcus Hale stopped thinking. His face went through every expression it had in the catalog in about 4 seconds. Disbelief, fury, calculation. The charm he put on for cameras, the innocence he put on for grand juries, the tenderness he used to put on, once, in a kitchen, a long time ago, when he had been briefly, partially, the man he had pretended to be. Each one flickered, failed, got replaced. None of them settled, because the person at the top of the staircase, looking down at him, did not belong to any audience he had in his catalog. She was not the Lena who cried. She was not the Lena who apologized. She was not the Lena who comforted him on a bathroom floor. She was a woman in a dress he had chosen, walking down a staircase he had not known about. in a room full of people who were no longer looking at him and were no longer looking at her, but were, by that point, looking at the screens and at each other and at the 7 names. 7 other women. 7. Everyone in the room knew at least 3 of those names. 2 senators' wives had gone pale. A man Lena had never seen in her life had sat down heavily. On the 13th step, Hal Westerbrook stepped out of nowhere. He did not come at Marcus from the front. That was the thing Lena marked. He came from the side. He was suddenly beside Marcus, at the elbow, at exactly the angle a man comes in when he has done this 1,000 times. Hal's hand went onto Marcus's arm. Not hard, not showy. The grip of a man who had a job. He said something. Lena could not hear what he said. She saw Marcus's mouth open. She saw Marcus's mouth close. She saw Marcus, for the first time in his life that she had ever seen, realize that he was right then not in a position to negotiate. She took the 15th step. She reached the 3rd step from the bottom. She stopped there. Marcus was, at that moment, perhaps 8 feet in front of her. Hal had him by the arm. The recording on the speakers was still going. The screens had moved on to the last minute. The last minute was her. Her on the staircase, right then, 40 feet tall, walking down. The cameras had been running the whole time. People in the room kept flicking their eyes to the screens to check that the Lena on the screen was the Lena in the room. She was. Both of her were looking at Marcus. The room was quiet enough to hear her breathe. She had for 3 days been trying to decide what to say. She had a list in her pocket. Metaphorically. She had, over those 3 days, written sentences in her head and rejected them one by one. Everything had sounded too big. Everything had sounded like a woman trying to say a thing for an audience. Her sentences kept becoming speeches. Her speeches kept becoming things Marcus would quote in his head later as her being dramatic. She did not want to be quotable. She wanted, on the 3rd step from the bottom, to be true. She looked at him. He looked back. Whatever was happening on his face was not, she realized, for her. It was for himself. It was the face of a man who had just understood that the person he had been making fun of in a private dining room 8 months ago had, all along, been a person. Not an object, not a resource, not a case he was building. A person who had been there the whole time, keeping track. She opened her mouth. She did not give a speech. She said, not loud, but the soundboard had her voice, and the soundboard put her voice onto the speakers at exactly the right level, and her voice for the first time in 2 years not apologizing for taking up air, moved out across the room at the volume of a woman speaking normally to a man 8 feet in front of her. I wasn't broken. That was it. That was the whole sentence. 3 words. He stared at her. I was tired, she said. Also quiet. Also on the speakers. There's a difference. You didn't know it. I do now. She looked at him a second longer. She did not smile. She did not soften. She nodded, once, at Hal, a small, almost polite nod, the nod you give a maitre d' who has held your coat. And she stepped down the last 2 steps, and she walked past Marcus without touching him. Hal took Marcus away. She did not watch. She walked across the ballroom toward the main doors. The room opened for her. 300 people, in black tie and in evening gowns, stepped back and back and back. And she walked through them, and nobody tried to touch her, and nobody said her name. And one woman, older, silver-haired, Lena didn't know her, met her eyes and, very slightly, inclined her head, the way an older woman acknowledges a younger one she has been waiting, in a sense, to meet. Lena inclined her head back. Adrian met her at the doors. He was, she realized, the first face she had actually looked into since she had started walking down the stairs. He did not say anything. He did not take her arm. He held the door open. She went through. The cold air of the vestibule hit her face. In the distance, somewhere behind them, the tape had stopped. The screens had gone dark. The room had begun, finally, to make the noise a room makes when it has been holding its breath for too long. Shouts, chairs scraping, a woman crying somewhere. A man somewhere else, laughing, the way people laugh when they have been scared. They got into the green sedan, the driver pulled away. They did not speak for maybe 6 blocks. Then Adrian said, quiet, "You didn't say anything in that sentence I expected." "I know. That was a better sentence than any I had thought of for you. I didn't plan it. I know you didn't. I kept trying to plan it, and every time I planned it, it sounded like a movie. I know. It came out on the steps. I know. Adrian. Yes. Is Nora okay? Mara texted me 3 minutes before you started down. Nora has been asleep for an hour. B is on the couch with her. Mara says, and I quote, "Tell Lena if she cries in the car, she has to explain to the dry cleaner why." Lena laughed. She laughed hard. A whole laugh. The fourth laugh of her last 2 years. The laugh went on for about 8 seconds, and it was somewhere in the middle, a sound she did not recognize as her own. And she kept laughing. And Delphine in the front seat started laughing too, and the driver, a complete stranger, started laughing. And Adrian's mouth moved into the full smile for the second time in 15 days, and they rode up the hill like that. At the top of the hill, the iron gate opened. Tomas was there. Bea was with him. Bea, seeing Lena get out of the car in a pale blue dress, wagged her tail once and then, with the unbothered confidence of an elderly dog, turned around and went back up the drive ahead of them, as if she had been the one, all along, leading them home. The months after the gala were not tidy. That is the thing Lena would, later, try to explain to the women who came to her. The takedown had been loud. The aftermath was quiet. The aftermath was paperwork. The aftermath was a grand jury. The aftermath was 3 months of Delphine driving her, every Tuesday and every Thursday, to an office in a neighborhood Lena had never been in, where, over and over, she sat in a chair across from kind strangers and told parts of her life out loud in the order she was asked to tell them in. Beckwith did not make it to Thursday. He was arrested Sunday morning at an airstrip 40 miles out. Ashford was arraigned Monday. Lenz was arraigned Monday afternoon. Marcus was arraigned Tuesday, and because he had, for his entire career, been very loud about being hard on crime, was denied bail by a judge who had read all the right transcripts and who made, Delphine later reported with a dry sort of satisfaction, a very short speech about hypocrisy before ruling. Nora did not testify. She didn't have to. She gave a statement in a room, once, with Delphine, with a court reporter, with Naomi holding her hand, and the statement did the work. She never had to be in a courtroom with any of them. Naomi wept in the parking lot after. Nora did not. Nora stayed at the house. She stayed at the house for 6 weeks, and then she moved into the small apartment above the carriage house at the back of the property, which she redecorated over 3 months, in colors that Lena thought at first were ugly and later realized were just Nora's. She went back to school. She started, in the second month, going into town by herself, first with Mara, then with Jules, then alone. She got a driver's license. She got, eventually, a small dog of her own, a rescue. A nervous terrier that loved her with the intensity of an animal that understood, in the way animals do, exactly what kind of person had picked it up. Lena, for the first 2 months, was not doing any of the things she would later do. She was, for the first 2 months, mostly sitting in windows. She sat in the window seat in her room in the mornings. She sat at the kitchen table in the afternoons. She sat on the back terrace in the evenings. She sat a great deal. Mara did not rush her. Adrian did not rush her. Jules did not rush her. Nobody in the house seemed to have an opinion about her sitting. She had spent 2 years being busy, managed, scheduled, dressed, positioned, and sitting, she found, was a thing she had forgotten how to do. She had to relearn it. She sat for 2 months. In the 3rd month, she asked Adrian at breakfast if she could see the folders. He looked at her. All of them. The ones with the other women. The 7 names. Yes. Why? Because I want to know who is helping them. I want to know who is with them. I want to know what it looks like when somebody like me comes out of something like this, and I want to know what happens next. He got her the folders. She read them for 3 weeks. She read them in the library. She read them slowly. She asked Delphine questions. She asked Jules questions. She sat, one afternoon, on the floor of the library with 6 folders spread around her, crying, not for long. She got up. She made tea. She kept reading. At the end of the 3rd week, she walked into Adrian's study. He was at his desk. She sat down across from him. She put her hands on her knees. She said, "I want to start something." "Okay. I don't know what it looks like yet." "Okay. I know there are women out there who don't have a gate like yours to run to. I had a gate. I got lucky. The reason I got out is the gate. I want to build I don't know what the word is. I want to build more gates. I want to build a house, not this house, not a house as big, a place with beds, with Mara, if Mara is okay with it, with somebody like Jules, with a lawyer, with the kind of thing that exists for a woman who is right now, tonight, in a kitchen somewhere, with a glass in her hand and a car pulling into a driveway, and she doesn't have an hour. She has 30 seconds. I want there to be a 30-second place. For women like me, I don't know what to call that. I don't know how to build it. I'm going to need your help. He looked at her across the desk. He did not say yes. He said, "How many rooms?" "What?" "How many rooms in your head? How many rooms does the first one have?" "I don't." "Say a number." "6. That's a small start. It's what I can imagine right now." "Good," he said. "That is the right answer. People who start big fail. You start with 6 rooms. We will find a building. I know a building. It's mine. I have not been using it. It is small. It has 6 bedrooms on the second floor. It has a kitchen. It has a garden. It is on the east side of the city. There is a community around it I have been careful with. They know me. They will not mind you. If you want the building is yours. You will need a board. You will need a name. You will need a funder other than me because you will not want to be tied to my name forever, and I will not want you to be. You will figure out a name. You will find a funder. I know 3 women who will write the first check if you ask them correctly. I will tell you how to ask them. The rest you will learn. Adrian. Yes. I don't know if I'm ready. Lena. You are not ready. That is fine. You will be ready by the time you need to be ready, because the thing about building something like this is that you have to be 6 months behind yourself the whole time. Everyone who does this is 6 months behind themselves. You will never feel ready. Do it anyway. She sat with that. What about you? She said. What about me? You. What do you do now? He leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a long time. He said, finally, for the first time in 16 years, I am going to not have a full calendar. I'm going to see what that is like. I am going to, I think, drive my dog to the beach, which I have not done in a very long time. I'm going to talk to Mara about buying a smaller house. This house is too big. I have known it is too big since Celia. I have been, I think, waiting to have a reason to leave it. Nora has the cottage. You are going to be in your 6-room building on the east side, which you are going to fill with 6 terrified women in a month and 12 in a year. I'm going to be, for the first time in my adult life, a person who has no job. I will probably be bad at it. I will probably, in 6 months, start 2 other things I don't mean to start. That is a problem for 6 months from now. Will you? She stopped. She didn't know how to ask it. She tried again. Will you still? I don't know how to. Lena. Yes. You are asking whether I am going to disappear. Yes. No, I am not going to disappear. Okay. I am not going to be in your way either. You are not. We are not. We don't need to have a conversation tonight about what you and I are, because we don't know yet. And I am not going to ask you to know when you have just finished climbing a staircase. I am going to be in your life. I am going to be in your life at the speed you want me to be in your life. You will set the speed. If the speed is that we are friends for 3 years, and then we see. If the speed is something else, it will be something else. You are not going to be asked by me to be anything you are not. Not ever. Okay. She got up. She walked around the desk. She stopped beside his chair. She put her hand very lightly on the back of his head, and she held it there for about 3 seconds, and then she took it away. She walked out of the study. She did, in fact, build the house. It took 11 months. She named it Bellwood, after the street, because she wanted to put that name on something she owned. The first woman came in on a Tuesday night in April, 15 months after Lena had come up Ridgemont Hill. She arrived barefoot. She did not have a coat. She had rung the bell with her forehead. Lena opened the door. The woman, who was maybe 23, could not get any words out. Lena said, I know. and held up her own hands, empty, palms out, and did not touch the woman until the woman, 40 seconds later, reached out and took her wrist. Lena walked her inside. She put her on a green leather couch because Adrian had, without telling anyone, bought a couch for the Bellwood house that was the exact couch from his own study, the one Lena had been set down on the first night, the one Nora had eaten soup on. Lena sat across from her and said, "Mara is coming. Mara is a nurse. Mara is going to look at your feet. Nobody is going to touch you without asking. You are safe here tonight. Tomorrow we will talk about what you want to do. You do not have to decide tonight. You do not have to tell me anything tonight. I'm Lena. What is your name?" The woman said her name. Lena said it back. Mara came. The door stayed locked, on the inside only, for the rest of the night. In the years that came after, Lena would sometimes, in a certain kind of mood, drive up to Ridgemont Hill. The gate was different. Adrian had sold the big house a year and a half after the gala and bought a smaller one, 2 miles away, with a yard Bea could die of old age and comfortably, which she did, at 13, in her sleep, in a patch of sun. Nora lived in the carriage house on the new property, then in her own small house near the hospital where she had, eventually, become an intake counselor. Mara divided her time between the Bellwood house, the new Voss place, and her daughter in Portland, all 3 of which she called home depending on who she was talking to. Delphine, gray fully silver now, had a second office in the Bellwood basement, which she called her weekend office, and used, in fact, 7 days a week. Jules had started a podcast that nobody had expected her to start, and that, in its 3rd season, had done a 2-part episode on the Ridgemont case that had made her, reluctantly, a public person. Hal Westerbrook had retired from the police and, against everyone's expectations, including his own, started a small bakery. Tomas had stayed with Adrian. Tomas would stay with Adrian forever. That was understood. Marcus would spend the rest of his life in a cell about 8 feet by 10 feet. Beckwith had, 14 months in, died in the prison infirmary of an aneurysm. Lenz had cooperated and gotten a shorter sentence, which Lena had opinions about but did not voice, because she had stopped being a person who had to voice every opinion she had. Ashford was out on appeal, then in again, then out, then in. His story was going to be long and messy, and Lena was going to stop following it at some point. That was allowed. She was allowed to stop following stories. And one of those evenings, a fall evening, 5 years later, with the light going gold across the garden, Lena sat on a porch that belonged to her, in a house that also belonged to her, with a dog that had chosen her curled against her leg, and watched a younger woman on the lawn teaching a newer woman how to throw a frisbee. Both of them had, a year before, not had names they could say out loud. They had names now. They had, both of them, terrible throwing form. The frisbee kept going into a hedge. They kept laughing about it. Adrian came up the porch steps with 2 cups of tea. He sat down, not close, in the other chair. He did not say anything for a while. Then he said, "She's going to be okay." Lena did not ask which one. He meant both. He meant all of them. He meant her. "I know," she said. "Lena." "Yes. Thank you. For all of it." She looked at him. She looked at him the way, 5 years ago, she had not known how to look at a man, directly, without flinching, without calculating what the look would cost her, without apology. She said, "You thanked me once, and I told you I would throw something at you. I remember. I don't have anything to throw. I notice. So I will just let it go, this once. Thank you. Don't. Too late." She laughed. It was not a sound she counted anymore. Laughing was not rare. Laughing was, these days, an ordinary thing her body did several times a day at ordinary things. That was, she had come to understand, the whole point. The point was not that one day she had given a sentence on a staircase. The point was that 5 years later, she could laugh at her own porch about the word thank, at a man she had, slowly, on her own time, at her own speed, chosen to build a kind of life next to, not with, but next to, the way 2 trees grow side by side and their roots eventually know each other underground without anyone making a fuss about it. There was no revenge in her life anymore. There had never really been revenge. There had been a staircase and a sentence and a door at the top of a drive and a lot of work after. And every night when she locked the front door of Bellwood, the inside lock, the one that only she or the woman on duty could turn, she thought, for about a second, of an iron gate in the rain, and a voice on an intercom, and the click of a bolt, and the way a stranger had once said, "Walk, don't run." She did not say it as a memory exactly. She said it more like a prayer. If a woman who did not pray had had one. A thing she repeated because repeating it kept it true, that a door could open, that a person could walk through, that the walking, the whole rest of the walking, the years of it, the slow, imperfect daily walking, was the thing. Not the running, the walking. And as long as there was, somewhere in the world, a woman running in the rain toward a light she did not yet trust, there would be somewhere else in the world a door, and a stranger behind it, and a hand held out, palm up, empty, saying the oldest true thing one person has ever said to another: "Come inside."